This is a story recounting the journey of exorcising demons and destroying ghosts by the father and son duo of the Chen Laogo family. Laogo's life has encountered countless bizarre events, such as the blood corpse in the blood coffin, the floating female corpse in the river, and the dark sorcery of Miaozhong. Specifically, to see how this journey unfolds, let's join Vit and dive right into the developments of this series. Chapter 1. The Vengeful Spirits of Mother and Child. Just as the sky turned dark, knocking sounds were already heard at old Chen's door. The person knocking was a descendant of the Lu family in the village. Looking at that hurried appearance, something urgent must have happened. "Old Master Chen, open the door quickly. It's Lu Dajang. I have an urgent matter." But at this moment, Chen Laogo was not at home. Only his son, Chen Xiaobian, was sleeping inside. Awakened by the incessant knocking, Chen Xiaobian was very angry. Hearing the urgent sound, he had no choice but to crawl up and answer the door. Upon opening it, he saw it was Lu Dajang. Chen Xiaobian, hot-blooded, cursed at him. "Lu Dajang, are you crazy? What grudge does my door have against you?" Lu Dajang ignored Xiaobian, pushed him aside with his hand, and barged into the house, wanting to find old Master Chen Laogo inside. Chen Xiaobian told him, "My dad went out to treat a patient. What's so urgent? Is the house burning down to reveal the rat's face?" Dajang angrily replied, "Burn your face. Only Chen Laogo can help with this matter." Dajang did not hide anything and began to recount the situation of his nephew over the past few days to Xiaobian. "My sister brought my nephew home, but as soon as they entered the house, he started crying loudly. It's been nearly 2 days continuously, and he still hasn't stopped crying."
Hearing this, Xiaobian patted his chest confidently and replied, "It's just such a small matter. Why bother my dad? Let me help you." Da Gong knew that Chen Xiaobian had grown up with Chen Laoye since childhood and surely learned some skills, but remembering how he often exaggerated things, he didn't feel very reassured. "Do these 2 blunt knives of yours actually work?" Xiaobian decisively said, "Don't worry, I've learned everything my dad knows." Since Chen Laoye wasn't home, there was no choice but to take Chen Xiaobian there. On the way, Xiaobian asked Da Gong, "Is your sister, Chenyi, at home?" Da Gong led the way while scolding, "You stinky brat, don't have any funny ideas about my sister." The two didn't walk far, passing just 2 alleys before arriving, but as soon as they reached the door, Chen Xiaobian's attention was caught by a piece of paper pasted on the wall. This Tian Huang Huang paper was a folk method pasted on walls to stop children from crying at night. Seeing this, Chen Xiaobian immediately tore it down. Da Gong initially intended to scold Chen Xiaobian, but thinking back, his nephew had been crying since yesterday, and although Grandma said to paste these papers up, the child still hadn't stopped crying.
Just as they stepped into the house, they heard the screaming cries of a child. The family was very impatient. The child had no fever, so why did he keep crying like that? Da Gong's older sister had been married into the city for 2 years. This time she brought her 1-year-old child back to visit. But unexpectedly, just as they entered the house, the child cried for 2 days straight and wouldn't stop. They couldn't figure out what illness it was, making everyone in the family very worried. The boy had never, so they suspected he was possessed. While the whole family was worrying, the room door opened and the voice of a young man rang out. The arrival was Chen Xiaobian. As soon as he entered, his show-off syndrome flared up. "Leave this matter to me, Chen Xiaobian, to handle." As soon as Xiaobian entered the house, Da Gong's younger sister ran out to welcome him. They were truly childhood sweethearts who grew up together. However, the Lu family did not want the 2 of them to associate with each other, so seeing the situation, they immediately appeared tense. Chen Xiaobian saw the attitude of the Lu family members, immediately suppressed his joy, then hurriedly ran to the bed to check the child's condition. The Lu family, seeing that the person who came was Chen Xiaobian, still felt a bit worried. After all, he was still young. Would he be reliable doing this? Chen Xiaobian walked over to the child. The 1-year-old was screaming and seemed to be feeling very uncomfortable. Chen Xiaobian was born with yin-yang eyes, but they worked intermittently. Observing carefully, he saw a green color deep in the boy's eyes. At the same time, he also saw a male ghost behind this child. Chen Xiaobian no longer dared to smile brightly at this moment, speaking seriously to everyone about the child's condition. Indeed, this child was possessed. Afterwards, he walked 2 circles around the house, finally stopping in front of the east-facing wall, thinking of a solution. The Lu family busily followed Chen Xiaobian's instructions. Chuni, hurry and go boil a kettle of water and bring it here.
After a while, the exorcism ritual began. Chen Xiaobian asked everyone to turn off all the lights in the house and use a flashlight for illumination. Then, he had the bravest person, Da Gong, hold the baby so the child's shadow would reflect on the wall. Just as Chun-Ni brought up a kettle of hot water, Chen Xiaobian took the kettle from Chun-Ni and without any hesitation poured it directly onto the child's shadow on the wall. As soon as the hot water was poured onto the wall, the baby's crying gradually subsided. The child suddenly let out a miserable sound and looked extremely in pain, exactly as if the hot water had been poured on the child's body. After that miserable sound, the child's consciousness seemed blank for a moment. Then the crying stopped, and his appearance returned to normal. The lights in the room were turned back on. Seeing the child recover, the whole family was very happy and ceaselessly praised Xiaobian's talent. Hearing these compliments, Chen Xiaobian got full of himself. Of course, that is natural. While everyone was happy, a harsh voice of a strange woman suddenly appeared in the house. "How dare you pour boiling water on my child?" Everyone turned to look. It turned out to be Sister Da Gong's Skiting, and she was in an extremely abnormal state. "My son just wanted to find a friend to play with. Why did you harm him?" Looking at Sister Da Gong at this moment, it was as if she had turned into a different person. Even her voice was completely unfamiliar. "You trapped us here and even hurt us. I will not forgive you." Just as everyone was stunned, the eldest daughter of the Lu family let out a fierce sound and rushed towards Chen Xiaobian. "You are a devil. Why did you harm my son?" Chen Xiaobian hadn't yet understood what was happening when Sister Da Gong lunged at him, scratching and biting. Chen Xiaobian finally reacted. The Lu family's eldest daughter is possessed, and immediately took a few steps back to dodge her attack. However, that female ghost wouldn't let him go easily, her mouth keeping on cursing Xiaobian. "I will not let you go, you devil." She raised both hands again and rushed forward to attack Chen Xiaobian, her mouth ceaselessly saying, "Go die." Chen Xiaobian retreated backward to dodge, unexpectedly tripping and falling for no apparent reason. Just as he was about to stand up, his shoulder was suddenly pressed down by an arm. Xiaobian thought in astonishment, "Could it be that there is another ghost behind me?" Chen Xiaobian turned his head back in fear to look, but it turned out his fear was in vain. The person standing behind him was his father, Chen Laogo. Laogo scolded Xiaobian, "Stinking brat, you have no skill, yet you want to come here to catch ghosts?" The Lu family felt very relieved seeing Chen Laogo arrive. There was no one who did not admire his skills. Chen Xiaobian immediately stood up and asked Laogo why he came here, but Laogo paid him no mind, instead speaking to the ghost. "Where do you come from, and why are you causing trouble in this house?" The eldest daughter of the Lu family raised her left hand, as if patting a child's head, and replied, "Someone brought me and my son here, and even locked us in this place." Upon hearing the female ghost's words, Chen Laoye immediately turned to ask the Lu family members, "Have you picked up any strange objects recently?" The Lu family thought for a moment and remembered that they had dug up 2 ceramic jars from the ground the other day. Thinking they were valuable, they brought them home. Chen Laoye and Xiaobian looked in the direction Da Gong pointed, and indeed saw 2 black ceramic jars in the corner of the house. Old Chen knew at a glance. These are old-style urns used to store the ashes of the dead. Moreover, these are mother and son ash urns. The yen energy is extremely heavy. You people really have big guts. These are urns containing the ashes of a mother and child, yet you dared to drag them home. Chen Laoye also knew that the Lu family arranged their furniture in a traditional way, hanging a mirror in front of the door. This was the reason why the mother and son spirits could not leave, so he told the Lu family to take down the mirror above the door. Waiting for the Lu family to settle things, Chen Laoye continued speaking to the female ghost. "Digging up those 2 ash urns can be considered liberating you two. This is a good deed. You two should hurry and go reincarnate." The eldest daughter of the Lu family raised her left hand, acting as if she were pulling a child along, and said, "We will go. We won't stay in this place." However, she made a request. "Burn some joss paper for us. I want to buy some food for the child." After stating her condition, the eldest daughter of the Lu family walked towards the door. Chen Laoye replied, "Rest assured, I will definitely burn money for you." After walking out the door, the eldest daughter of the Lu family paused for a long while, standing still for over a minute. Then she suddenly let out a groan, and her body fell backward.
Fortunately, Dagon, who had been watching his sister's condition from behind, waited for her to come to and immediately ran over to support her. Seeing the female ghost was gone, Chen Laoye assigned the remaining tasks to the Lu family. First, they were to roll 2 chicken eggs on the foreheads of the mother and son, the living victims, and then burn a pile of spirit money for the ghost mother and son in front of the Lu family's door. Old Chen burned joss paper for them. He also cut out paper figures of a mother and son and burned them, saying they were substitutes, effigies, to help the ghost mother and son achieve liberation soon. Once everything was done, Old Chen grumbled at Xiaobian. "Listen well, you stinky brat. Not every ghost is evil."
Before leaving, Chen Laogo told Xiaobian to paste back the Tian Huang papers that he had torn down earlier. Chen Xiaobian did not understand what was going on, but after asking his father, he learned that things passed down by the ancestors all have their reasons. Seeing Chen Laogo and his son about to leave, Dagong immediately went out to see the guests off and thanked them. At this moment, Dagong also realized that his younger sister, Chen Ni, had been standing behind him for some time, looking at Xiaobian's retreating back. Dagong hurriedly dragged his sister into the house, saying, "What are you looking at? Don't look at that brat anymore." The noise behind them was heard by both Xiaobian and Laogo. "You brat, born with a solitary fate, destined to bring bad luck to your relatives. Don't go harming other people's daughters."
Seeing his father say that, Chen Xiaobian blushed, immediately feeling embarrassed. "So, father, doesn't that mean our Chen family will have no descendants?" Chen Laogo walked and replied, "That depends on whether you can meet a girl with a special destiny or not." Xiaobian sighed. "If that girl looks like a yaksha, then forget it. I'd rather let the Chen family line end. By the way, who have you been treating these past few days?" Old Chen said, "I wasn't treating illnesses. I was going to the back of the mountain to deal with monsters." "Ah, is it the one-eyed old ghost at the back of the mountain? Tomorrow, let me go there with you." Just like that, the figures of the father and son, Chen Laogo, faded into the night. Their story had only just begun. Chapter 2. The Corpse Rises. The Laoye of the Zha family in the village passed away today. The 2 Zha brothers were sitting outside the garden door, keeping vigil for their father. While discussing how to handle their father's funeral, the younger brother asked, "Why did you put father on the table?" The older brother replied, "There was no other way. Father left so suddenly, we didn't have time to prepare." It could be said that Zha Laoye was a good man, gentle all his life, and lived very popularly in the village. His 2 children were also considered filial. The older brother said, "According to our village's custom, we have to leave father's body here for 3 days. Wait until tomorrow to buy a coffin, then we brothers will take turns watching over him." A few days ago, old Zha was still walking around normally, but today he suddenly suffered a stroke, which was quite serious this time. A living person just died like that. The younger brother sighed. "I found someone to date. I originally planned to bring her home to meet father." The 2 Zha brothers followed the rules of the vigil, burning longevity incense next to the corpse. When keeping vigil, one must pay attention to the incense. At around 11 p.m., the younger brother turned back to check if the incense had burned out. It seemed there was still a section left. According to the older brother, if that longevity incense goes out, it proves that the future generations of the Zha family will not go smoothly.
At this moment, the younger brother suddenly noticed a black shadow moving in the morning hall. Both brothers looked inside and were scared out of their wits. It turned out to be a black cat that had sneaked into the morning hall from somewhere and was under the corpse table. This cat was blind in one eye. While the brothers were frozen in shock, the black cat jumped onto Elder Zhao's corpse. The black cat used its paw to flip open the white cloth covering Elder Zhao, then put its mouth close to Elder Zhao's mouth and sniffed or sucked something. No one knew what it was trying to do. The 2 Zhao brothers finally reacted, shouting loudly and rushing over to chase the black cat away. Seeing people rushing in, the black cat jumped down from the other side. This cat was very smart. It circled the table and refused to leave the area, then stretched its body and leaped onto the windowsill. Upon reaching the windowsill, the black cat showed no fear at all. It even looked back at the 2 Zhao brothers, raised its head to meow twice, and only then jumped out of the window. Seeing the black cat gone, the brothers couldn't do anything else but curse a few times after it. The older brother went to check the windows to ensure they were all closed, while the younger brother checked their father's body for any damage, then covered it again with the white cloth. The younger brother had been working away from home for years and didn't understand the village rules much.
Seeing his brother so tense over a black cat felt very strange to him. The older brother said it wasn't just a simple black cat, it could cause the corpse to rise up. Hearing about the corpse rising, the younger brother laughed immediately. He thought that a dead person is like a lamp running out of oil, nothing more than a pile of meat. How could it move? But they didn't know that behind them, Zhao Laoye's corpse was starting to move. The two brothers were still unaware, sitting casually talking outside the door. The older brother asked the younger one to check if the incense had burned out. At this moment, the younger brother turned around to look, and the scene he saw scared him until he trembled. The older brother also turned his head to look. At this moment, Zhao Laoye's corpse was turning its face to look at the two brothers.
The two brothers were so scared, their jaws dropped, speechless, and goosebumps rose all over their bodies. At this moment, Zhao Laoye's posture was very strange as he looked towards the two brothers outside the door. Mouth wide open, eyes soulless, and neck twisted 180 degrees, the three of them just stared deeply at each other like that. No one dared to move, but it was a silly question from the younger brother that caused the corpse to start moving. "Dad, are you alive again?" The older brother began to react, screaming at the top of his lungs for his younger brother to run. At this point, Zhao Laoye's corpse also started moving, following the direction the two brothers were running. Meanwhile, Chen Laogou and his son, Xiao Bian, were at home preparing to eat. Xiao Bian asked his father, "Now that you don't treat patients anymore, what will you do in the future?" It turns out that Chen Laogou used to be the pillar doctor in the village, and the life of the father and son was considered not bad. However, in recent years, someone came to the village to inspect and discovered he didn't have a practicing license, so he was no longer allowed to treat others. Chen Laogou had gotten used to such a frugal life, but his son had ambitions to go to the city. Every few days, whether there was news or not, he would nag about it. Just at this moment, two young men from the village rushed to their house in a panic. The two panted for a long time before they began to recount what happened. Zhao Laoye's corpse had reanimated. Hearing the words "corpse reanimated," the Chen father and son dared not delay. Skipping their meal, they immediately went to deal with it. Chen Laogou knew that no one dared to get close to this matter. Fearing that the corpse would harm others, he instructed his son to go handle it first, while he stayed behind to prepare more necessary items for the confrontation. Chen Laogou had to instruct Chen Xiaobian over and over again to stay calm, but Xiaobian was fearless since birth. He quickly agreed perfunctorily and then followed the other two. Chen Xiaobian and the two men ran straight to the Zhao family's house, seeing the younger brother of the Zhao family sitting leaning against the door. Chen Xiaobian ran over and praised him. "Your guts are truly big, guarding here all this time. Is the corpse still inside?" It turned out Chen Xiaobian's praise was superfluous. This man was actually too scared to run, not brave enough to stay. Chen Xiaobian was not a reckless person. He first scouted the position of the corpse before acting. Since the three of them went in together, they weren't too afraid. They immediately pushed open the main door of the Zhao family home and entered. However, after rushing into the Zhao house, they all froze like telephone poles, standing dead still on the spot. It turned out that at this moment, Zhao Laoye's corpse was in an extremely bizarre posture, crawling on the ground, staring blankly at the wall. Because Chen Xiaobian's group rushed in, they startled the corpse. The corpse seemed agitated and immediately turned to stare at the three of them. Ordinary people had never seen such a scene. The other two immediately turned and fled in terror. Chen Xiaobian was also very scared at this moment, but he couldn't lose face by running after them. Before Chen Xiaobian could prepare anything, the corpse jumped up and lunged straight at Chen Xiaobian. Chen Xiaobian wasn't scared stupid. Seeing a chair, he handily picked it up to block the corpse. Just using the chair to block one blow, Chen Xiaobian was bewildered when he saw the marks the corpse left on the chair.
While Chen Xiaobian was frozen, the corpse continued to rush forward. With that speed, the damage would likely not be low. Just when Chen Xiaobian didn't know what to do, Chen Laogou's voice finally rang out from behind. But Laogou said, "You handle it for a bit longer. I'm almost ready." With his father behind him, Chen Xiaobian's courage grew a bit. Seeing the corpse rushing over, he immediately moved to counter it, unexpectedly stepping on something soft underfoot. Looking down, he realized it was the corpse's burial shroud. Chen Xiaobian immediately used that cloth to cover the corpse's vision. The corpse, having its sight blocked by the shroud, bought Chen Xiaobian a fair amount of time.
Xiaobian used the wooden table to push towards the corpse, using the strength of his arms to force the frenzied corpse against the wall. While Xiaobian was busy fighting like that, on the other side, Chen Laogo, unknown if intentional or not, was seen drawing a talisman very leisurely and slowly. The table began to fail in holding back the corpse. Its hands had already pierced through the wood. If Xiaobian hadn't reacted quickly, he would have likely met his end right there. At this moment, Chen Laogo finally made his move, flying like an arrow to paste the talisman onto the frenzied corpse's forehead. It was strange to say. Just a moment ago, the corpse was ferocious with terrifying strength, but in an instant, it froze in place, not moving a muscle. Seeing the situation had stabilized, the father and son removed the table, but the corpse still stood there trembling. Chen Laogo and Chen Xiaobian then spent a bit more effort to handle the corpse. Chen Laogo drew a large talisman under the table to prevent any further changes in the corpse. The people of the Zhao family were all called to the mourning hall, and Chen Laogo asked them the reason why the corpse suddenly reanimated. The two Zhao brothers who had been guarding the coffin earlier were sweating from tension as they recounted the cause of the reanimation. Hearing about the cat, old Chen understood 80 or 90% of the reason. The older brother said, "It might be due to the black cat that father raised for the past few years. Earlier, it climbed onto my father's body." It turned out old Chen also knew about that black cat. It was a stray cat that old Zhao had picked up from the roadside. When he picked it up, he didn't know its age, but it was likely already an adult. Old Zhao had raised it for several years just like that. Chen Laogo sighed. It seemed their father hadn't killed the cat, and this was the consequence of his benevolence. Old Chen knew the cat had some cultivation and advised the Zhao family to deal with it. According to folklore, cats shouldn't live past 6 years, and dogs shouldn't live past 8 years. Otherwise, strange things begin to happen. Old Chen looked up at the ceiling of the Zhao house, and just then Xiaobian also discovered that the black cat was standing up there. Chen Laogo said, "This cat returned wanting to borrow a corpse to resurrect the soul. Having been a beast for so long, perhaps it wants to try the feeling of being human." The black cat probably realized it had been discovered. It stood there looking down for a long while before turning its head and leaving into the silent night. Old Chen knew this black cat had entered the dark path and wouldn't know how to repent. Perhaps an exorcism battle was unavoidable. Chapter 3. The Zhao Family's Cat. A month and a half had passed since the corpse reanimation incident at the Zhao family, and peace in the village was gradually restoring. That day, the Lu family's daughter, Lu Chunni, went to pick string beans after finishing her meal. From a distance, she saw Chen Laogo and Chen Xiaobian passing by. "Xiaobian, it's getting dark. Where are you and Uncle Chen going?"
It turns out the one-eyed black cat that disappeared that day had been missing since then. Chen Laogo searched for it for a long time and finally discovered its tracks. This time, he intends to eliminate it. Xiaobian told Chunni, "My father and I are going to catch a cat demon." Old Chen reminded Xiaobian not to alarm others. Da Gong is Xiaobian's only close friend in this village. Although he is a bit rough, he is also very brave. Xiaobian asked Chunni, "Where is your brother? For things like this, I really want to invite your brother to come along." At the same time, Da Gong was elsewhere. Having his name mentioned by Xiaobian, he immediately sneezed. This guy just finished eating and couldn't sit still, so he was at the foot of the mountain catching fish. Speaking of catching fish, growing up in a village surrounded by mountains on 3 sides and water on 1 side, nothing is better than this for Lu Dezhong and Chen Xiaobian. Xiaobian was on his way up the mountain when he saw Da Gong happily catching fish by the river. "Oh, so this big fool is here." Da Gong saw Xiaobian and Chen Laogo, so he called out to ask, "Uncle Chen, Xiaobian, where are you two going?" Xiaobian, with his old style, immediately boasted to Da Gong, "We are going to subdue a cat demon." Xiaobian proudly told Da Gong what he was doing and even mocked Da Gong. Actually, Laogo recognized this little trick immediately and still had to remind his son, "Stop showing off."
Sure enough, Da Gong could not withstand the provocation. He thought that while Xiao Ben was going to catch demons and protect the villagers, he was just catching fish, an action far less useful than what Xiao Ben was doing. This upright person fell for Xiao Ben's goading stratagem, quickly chased after them, determined to also become a great hero of the village. "Uncle Chen, Xiao Ben, wait for me." As for the fish Da Gong had just caught, it was immediately released by him, but whether this fish could survive or not, that remains to be seen. Da Gong and Xiao Ben bickered all the way. The 3 of them crossed 3 mountains and finally went deep into a large mountain. They continued to a clearing on the mountainside. Chen Laogo felt that it was still early, so he let them rest there and eat some food. Taking this opportunity, Xiao Ben asked his father about that one-eyed cat spirit. "Dad, what kind of abilities does that cat spirit have? Tell us a bit about it." Speaking of this cat spirit, Xiaoben and Da Gong only knew that it was a cat that had lived for many years, possessed some cultivation, had touched old Zhao's corpse, and wanted to borrow the corpse to return its soul. They knew nothing else. Chen Laogo was also afraid that these two would be careless and suffer for it. After finishing a cigarette, he immediately told them a story. Chen Laogo took a deep drag of smoke, then began to recount an old story from 3 years ago. This cat spirit is not ordinary. 3 years ago, I saw that it already had some cultivation, but old Zhao would not listen to my advice.
3 years ago, Chen Laogo, as usual, had nothing to do, so he went walking around the village. As he approached the Zhao family's door, he saw old Zhao sitting there waiting for him. "Brother Zhao, what are you doing sitting out here?" Chen Laogo didn't understand what was going on yet when he was dragged inside by old Zhao. Upon entering, unexpectedly, old Zhao, who usually lived very simply, had wine and chicken today, insisting that Chen Laogo join him for a meal. Although he was polite on the surface, as soon as they sat down, old Zhao revealed his true purpose. It turned out that on old Zhao's hand, from out of nowhere, sores had appeared, festering all day long, and hadn't healed for over half a year. As soon as Chen Laogo heard this, realizing it was not outside his expectations, he laughed out loud. "I was wondering why you, old Zhao, invited me for wine and chicken today."
It turned out that after Chen Laogo was banned from practicing medicine, old Zhou had already found a medical student in the province to take a look. He opened his mouth demanding several hundred yuan for medicine right away, yet he couldn't cure this illness either. While the two were talking and eating together, old Zhao's grandson, who had just started first grade, entered the house. The child's name was Jin Ping, without the Mei, and he was only 6 years old. Just as he entered the house, he boasted to his grandfather about something very strange. "Grandpa, our family's black cat has learned to talk like a human." It turned out that as soon as Jin Ping reached the door, he heard someone inside saying they wanted to drink wine. But when the child pushed the door open, he didn't see anyone, only a black cat sitting behind the door. That sentence was spoken by the cat. The speaker meant it, but the listener was casual. However, Chen Laogo sitting nearby felt that something was amiss in this story. He said, "Old Zhao, don't blame the child wrongly. I don't think children know how to lie." Jin Ping kept insisting, "I definitely heard the cat demanding wine." Chen Laogo didn't want to speak too seriously for fear of scaring the child. On one hand, he gave the boy a chicken drumstick. On the other, he wanted to hear Jin Ping tell more about that black cat. Jin Ping was just a child after all. He happily ate the drumstick and told the two grandfathers about the black cat. He couldn't remember exactly when it started, but there were 2 times Jin Ping remembered extremely clearly. One time, when Jin Ping returned from kindergarten, he saw no one at home, so he wanted to steal a few candies to eat. Suddenly, the boy heard a sound coming from the room. Jin Ping found it strange. Clearly, he was alone in the house, so why did he hear a voice? He turned his head to look. The room was empty. There was really no one there. Only the black cat his grandfather raised lying on the bed. Who had spoken then?
Just as Jin Ping was curious, he suddenly heard that voice again. This time, Jin Ping clearly heard it coming from the cat's mouth. It said, "I want 49 broad beans." Jin Ping was still young, and since his grandfather had raised this cat for many years and played with it since childhood, the boy didn't feel scared at all. While Jin Ping was intrigued, the cat walked straight up to him and spoke again, asking if he had 49 broad beans. Although Jin Ping was curious, his mind was entirely focused on the pile of candy. Eating candy, he replied to the cat, "Broad beans are in the granary. Do you want to eat candy with me? Don't tell Grandpa that I'm secretly eating candy." There was another time when no one was home. Jin Ping was playing with toys on the bed, and the black cat stood aside staring at him. Suddenly, the black cat took Jin Ping's hat from the bed, put it on its head, and spoke. "Look, I'm wearing your hat." Then the cat put on Jin Ping's shirt, stood up, and swayed back and forth, taking 2 steps. The black cat walked in front of Jin Ping, just like a human, and asked Jin Ping what it looked like. Jin Ping felt it looked just like the animals in a circus, quite amusing, so he praised it for looking like a human. Hearing Jin Ping say it looked very much like a human, the cat seemed very happy. It continued to perform in front of Jin Ping, taking a few more steps. While they were talking, Jin Ping's father walked in from the door carrying half a bag of rice. "Who are you talking to, Jin Ping?" Jin Ping immediately told his father that the cat was acting exactly like a human. Unexpectedly, by then the cat had taken off all the clothes and acted completely normal, lying sprawled there. Jin Ping recounted these stories to the 2 elders while eating a chicken drumstick.
His father hadn't believed him at the time and even threatened to spank him. In his heart, Chen Lao felt this matter was not simple at all. Upon asking, it turned out the Zhao family had raised this cat for over 10 years, and it was already quite big when they found it.
Chen Lao dared not say much in front of the children. He simply reminded old Zhao. This cat had been raised for a long time, so it was hard to avoid it becoming a spirit. The saying, "Do not raise a cat for more than 6 years, do not raise a dog for more than 8 years," was not just a rumor spread for fun. Just having spoken half a sentence, the sensitive Chen Lao discovered the black cat on the garden wall. It was exactly this black cat. Old cats can not only understand human speech, but also understand words through lip movements. Immediately, Chen Lao turned around and spoke to old Zhao about that cat. When old Zhao was talking about that cat, Chen Lao noticed the cat kept looking towards the inside of the house, so he didn't say another word. That black cat, unknown if it possessed human nature or not, sat on the wall staring at Chen Lao for a long time. Seeing that he didn't say anything else, it jumped away to another place. Seeing the cat gone, Chen Lao then continued speaking about the cat. Old Zhao, dogs and cats that stay in the human world for too long, having too much contact with human life, will very easily become spirits.
Although Chen Lao said that black cat was a cat demon, old Zhao said he had raised it for too long and had deep affection for it, so he didn't have the heart to dispose of it. Seeing old Zhao's stubbornness, Chen Lao could only patiently explain the severity of the situation to him. "Old Zhao, we've been friends for over 20 years. Are you afraid I would harm you?" Chen Lao then spoke to old Zhao about the cat needing broad beans to practice dark arts and mentioned that breaking the seal would damage the child's lifespan. Hearing this, old Zhao finally started to care. That cat wanted 49 broad beans. It was one of the materials needed to cultivate the cat demon arts. Remember last time it asked Jinping if it looked like a human? That was it trying to break the seal. It won't be good for Jinping. Taking another sip of wine, Chen Lao continued. Historically, having evil spirits in the house never ends well. As for how you want to handle it later, naturally, no one can force you. Old Zhao mumbled a reply, saying he would deal with the cat in a few days. Chen Lao then spoke about old Zhao's wound. "This ulcer of yours is actually a cat poison ulcer, a toxin excreted by that cat after practicing dark arts." While speaking, Chen Lao checked old Zhao's pulse. "If you feel unwell, you should still think about the future, about your descendants." Suddenly, Chen Lao asked a strange question that made old Zhao freeze. "Old Zhao, your wife has been gone for a long time. Haven't you thought about finding someone else?" Old Zhao was stunned and replied, "What nonsense are you talking about? Look at how old I am."
This pain was, after all, much more bearable than having it fester for half a year. The two men joked for a few more sentences before Chen Lao stood up to bid farewell. Afterward, Xiao Laoye didn't have the heart to kill it, so he only chased the cat out of the house. He did not expect that this single moment of soft-heartedness would create a great calamity in the future. After finishing the story for the two young men, he analyzed further, saying that leaving this cat alive in the world would sooner or later cause more trouble. It definitely hadn't given up on borrowing a corpse to resurrect the soul. However, Dagong and Xiaobian still didn't think there was anything to be afraid of. They only thought it was a cat. No matter how great its skills were, it was still just a beast. Xiaobian said, "Father, you've told stories all day, but in the end it's just a cat that understands human speech. What's there to be afraid of?" Chen Lao replied, "You are wrong to think that. If it occupies a body to resurrect again, that would be simple, but this time it has cultivated into a black fur zombie." Upon hearing Chen Lao say the cat had cultivated into a black fur zombie, Dagong didn't know what that was, so he was a bit scared, but Xiaobian was terrified the moment he heard it. He had heard his father recount the formidability of zombies many times. Chen Lao looked up to observe the celestial phenomena, knowing that the time had come. He called the two brats to get ready. Tonight was the full moon, and that black cat must have come out. Chapter 4. Cat Demon. Today happened to be the full moon, the round moon hanging suspended in the sky. Under the moonlight at this moment, deep in that mountain, a black shadow appeared right at the peak, raising its head toward the moon and breathing through its mouth. Looking a bit closer, one could see it was an old woman with disheveled hair, crawling on the mountain peak like an animal, her appearance very terrifying. At the foot of the mountain slope, there were the shadows of 3 people secretly monitoring every move of that old woman. Those 3 were none other than Chen Lao, Chen Xiaobian, and Lu Dajiang. Chen Lao sat nonchalantly under a tree resting,
But Xiaobian and Dagong were extremely alarmed by the scene. Who was that old woman, and what was she doing there?
Through Chen Laogo, it was revealed that the black cat could not control old Zhao's corpse, so it sneaked over to the neighboring village to possess the body of an old woman who had just died. Every full moon, it would go up to the mountaintop to absorb the moon's essence to keep the corpse from rotting, and at the same time, help it cultivate into human form sooner. Chen Laogo said that if it were allowed to absorb the moon's essence for a full 49 days, he feared that by then, it would be no different from a human. Chen Laogo had to investigate for a very long time to track down this black cat. This time, he prepared especially carefully to subdue it, unable to let it continue causing trouble. Laogo assigned tasks to the two young men. Upon hearing that the task was just to lure the cat, Dagong thought it was too simple. However, Xiaobian understood his father's intention very well. If it were that simple, his father would not have brought them along.
Sure enough, Chen Laogo had said that the corpse controlled by the cat demon was toxic all over. It was also very agile, lunging to bite any living person it saw. Extremely dangerous. Xiaobian had followed his father in the trade for a long time, so he had rich experience. As they approached the mountain peak, he reminded Dagong to be careful. The two of them cautiously moved along the forest edge, slowly getting closer to the peak. Along the way, Xiaobian didn't forget to tease Dagong a bit. "So, are you scared enough to wet your pants yet?" Dagong snorted softly. Would this daddy ever know fear? The two were extremely careful. Fortunately, they hadn't been discovered by the cat demon yet. However, to attract its attention, they had to prepare an escape route first. They really needed to be more thorough and find a way out before doing anything else. After everything was ready, Xiaobian started his tricks again. "Just pick up a stone or a branch and throw it at the cat. That'll do, but I don't dare to." Dagong didn't know Xiaobian was tricking him. With surging vigor, he picked up a stone and threw it toward the cat demon. "What is there to be afraid of? Watch me show you how it's done." The old woman was focusing on absorbing the moon essence when she was hit in the head by the stone. She suddenly turned her head, seeing someone disturbing her. The old woman was furious, emitting a terrifying growl. At the same time, the old woman's corpse also sprouted a lot of black fur. Dagong was terrified by the sight. He turned his head wanting to look at Xiaobian, but the guy had already run a fair distance. Dagong didn't dare stand there anymore and ran after Xiaobian closely. "You unrighteous guy, running without calling me?" Xiaobian ran and replied, after throwing it, "If you don't run, are you standing there to be bait for the cat demon?" The two were now running for their lives. Even though they were scratched by surrounding branches, they didn't dare stop. The whooshing wind behind their backs reminded them that the old woman was about to catch up. They ran for a while and finally reached the rendezvous point agreed upon with old Chen, but they couldn't see Chen Laogo anywhere. While both were anxiously waiting for Chen Laogo, a black shadow darted out from the forest. It was the corpse of the old woman controlled by the black cat. Like a lightning bolt, it lunged straight at Dagong. This Dagong could be considered somewhat agile. Knowing the cat demon was formidable, he ducked to dodge its attack. The old woman knew clearly that it was Dagong who threw the stone earlier, so she kept charging straight at him, biting and tearing relentlessly. In the blink of an eye, she lunged again to attack.
Although Chen Xiaobian usually teased Dagong every day, seeing his best friend in trouble made him break out in a cold sweat. Chen Xiaobian came up with a plan. He went over to a tree and broke it with his bare hands. At this moment, Dagong was beginning to tire, but the old woman was still full of energy, attacking ceaselessly, putting Dagong in a passive position. Just then, Chen Xiaobian rushed in with the tree in his hands to block the old woman. Chen Xiaobian was very smart. He knew very well that the old woman was extremely agile. If the two of them faced her head-on, they would certainly be at a disadvantage. The old woman was restricted by the tree branches, momentarily finding it difficult to escape this confinement. However, this was only a temporary delaying tactic after all. If the black cat figured out a way to escape, the two of them would be done for. Chen Xiaobian immediately called out to Chen Laogo, "Dad, are you done yet? If you're not quick, the white-haired will be sending off the black-haired." Just as the old woman found a way to break free, Chen Laogo had somehow appeared behind her. In Chen Laogo's hand was a steel wire with a sharp tip. Taste the power of this Guan Ding Suol. This was Chen Laogo's most effective tool. Old Chen was seen swinging the steel wire in his hand. After Chen Laogo released his hand, The steel wire was just like a flexible snake, aggressively lunging towards the old woman. A distinct sound was heard as the sharp tip of the steel wire pierced into the old woman's body. Qianlago felt it and quickly whipped the wire back and forth, drawing several circles. The old woman seemed to sense danger and turned to run, but by this time the steel wire had already wrapped tightly around her.
Qianlago took the steel wire again, threw it over a tree branch, and then pulled hard with force. The old woman's corpse was hoisted upside down on the tree. Her body writhed in waves of agony, constantly emitting grotesque sounds. Qianlago was in no rush and waited a bit longer. By then, the old woman's body had stopped struggling, looking just like a truly dead corpse. Seeing this scene, Qianlago realized that the black cat had sensed danger and abandoned the body. When the cat demon left the corpse, Chen Xiaobian felt very uneasy. Would it try borrowing a corpse to resurrect the soul again? This was not a real solution to the problem. Chen Xiaobian looked into the forest and suddenly felt a sense of desolation. Unless that black cat glowed like a firefly, finding it even in broad daylight would be no easy task. However, Qianlago remained unhurried. Finding the black cat in this vast, dense forest was not impossible.
Qianlago, a man of vast experience, took a step towards the deep forest, saying he had long calculated this and had even invited a helper. This black cat would not escape. Qianlago put his finger to his mouth and let out a loud whistle towards the deep forest. After the whistle, several minutes passed without any movement. Chen Xiaobian couldn't hold back and started asking his father what he was planning and if this helper of his was reliable. Suddenly, the three of them heard frenzied barking coming from the deep forest. The sound came from the woods behind them. Everyone turned to look. Qianlago said the helper had arrived. It seemed the black cat had been found. However, looking closely, they only saw trees in the forest and did not see a shadow of the cat demon. Just as the two young men were doubting, several animal shadows began to dart out rapidly from the deep forest. Leading the front was that black cat. It was now forced against the large rocks ahead, with no path to retreat, the cat demon trembling in fear. Following closely was a strange-looking dog, leading a pack of fierce dogs emerging from the deep forest, surrounding the cat demon. The lead dog was entirely white, looking incredibly ferocious, and strangely, there was a large fleshy lump on its head. Seeing this dog, the black cat trembled uncontrollably in fear. The dog gave the cat demon no chance to breathe. Like a bolt of lightning, it lunged and bit the cat, causing it to let out a miserable scream. Its bones were crushed by the fierce dog's bite. Hearing this, the two young men got goosebumps out of fear. In just a short moment, the evil black cat was torn to pieces in the white dog's mouth. The strange dog looked at Qianlago once, then dragged the black cat's corpse along with the pack of dogs back into the deep forest. At this moment, Qianlago, who had been silent, finally spoke. "Old friend, you can take that cat's body, but shouldn't you leave its eye behind?"
The white dog seemed to understand human speech. It turned its head to look at Qianlago once, its eyes revealing a hint of ferocity, though it was unclear if the dog feared Qianlago or was giving him face. In the end, it had to leave the cat demon's eye behind. The three of them had been exhausted all night, and finally they could return home. Chen Xiaobian did not understand why his father wanted the cat demon's eye, so he immediately asked, "Father, what do you need the cat demon's eye for?" A single sentence from Qianlago made Chen Xiaobian so happy he almost jumped for joy. This thing is a precious gem. It is not easy to come by. Qianlago mentioned the records in Zibu Yu. This stone is a creation from the eyes of a spirit cat, truly a treasure. This is called the spirit cat stone eye. If buried in the ground for 8 to 10 years, it can emit the light of a cat's eye, and it is worth tens of thousands of yuan. Qianlago carefully put away the spirit stone, ignoring Chen Xiaobian's rambling, and led the two young ones down the mountain. "Dagong, you have a share in this too, but that is a matter for 10 years from now. Do not think about it just yet."
Chen Xiaobian said again, "How about you leave that spirit stone to me, father? I will use it as a betrothal gift to marry Chunni." Hearing this, Dagong immediately scolded him, "Stop eyeing my sister." Chen Xiaobian added, "But father, that strange dog doesn't seem like anything good." Qianlago immediately refuted Chen Xiaobian's words. "Don't talk nonsense. That corpse-eating dog is your life-saving benefactor." Chapter 4. corpse-eating dog. After dealing with Elder Zhao's cat demon, the Chen father and son rested for 2 days. Chen Laogo noticed his son's preoccupation these past few days. Chen Xiaobian kept asking his father about the corpse-eating dog. It was just that he didn't know how to pick the right time to ask, always choosing mealtime. Even heaven avoids striking during a meal. However, having followed old Chen for years, Chen Xiaobian had encountered plenty of horrific things and was long immune to them. If we still mind those things, we'll only starve to death. Father, we eat nothing but white radishes. Why should we care about that? Chen Laogo was truly helpless against his son Chen Xiaobian's personality. He put his bowl and chopsticks down on the table and smoked again. Seeing his son so curious that even his braid wanted to stand up, and knowing it wasn't easy for him to hold back for 2 days, he finally told him about the origin of the corpse-eating dog. Many years ago, during the chaos of war, the wealthy could have a peaceful resting place and a proper grave, along with some burial objects. The poor, however, could only find a random place to be buried. If lucky, they got a thin coffin, but most were simply buried wrapped in a straw mat. In those years, humans didn't even have enough to eat, let alone food for animals, so the lives of stray dogs were left to run their course in the deep mountains.
Therefore, when someone is newly buried, the boldest among these dogs will take advantage of the darkness to dig up the grave. The alpha dog must hone a set of razor-sharp claws to facilitate the digging. In moments, it can reach the coffin. The coffins of the poor are referred to as head-bumping dog coffins. They are made from cheap materials, pressed into thin wood, inherently unable to withstand the battering of wild dogs. Furthermore, since these corpse-eating dogs frequently bash their heads against coffins, a large callus forms on their heads. By smashing with their heads, they break open the thin coffins, and once the coffin is shattered, the corpse-eating dog drags the body out. Once the corpse is dragged out, the alpha dog usually eats first. It consumes the heart and brain, ignoring the other parts. The remaining parts are eaten by the rest of the pack. Most wild dogs are starving and will fight fiercely for food, not sparing even bone fragments. Because the alpha dog consumes so much human heart and brain, it inevitably develops a demonic aura. It lives for a very long time, gains human-like intelligence, and in many cases falls into the demonic path, causing harm to the region. Chen Laogu took another drag of his cigarette. After finishing the story about the corpse-eating dogs, he mentioned the white dog they met 2 days ago. I don't remember clearly how long that dog has lived, but it used to be a dog that specialized in eating human corpses. Hearing old Chen's story, Chen Xiaobian got goosebumps all over his body and felt no goodwill towards that corpse-eating dog. Then I was right to say it's not a good thing, wasn't I? However, Chen Laogu had a different perspective on this matter. You can't say that. It's like the sky burial in Tibet. The stinking human body is also a vessel of suffering. If it can be quickly eaten to help the soul reincarnate sooner, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Therefore, in terms of the cycle of Tao, corpse-eating dogs are like the vultures in Tibet. They are benevolent entities. Hearing his father speak, Chen Xiaobian picked up his rice bowl and ate ravenously. Usually, Chen Xiaobian was very talkative, so when he fell silent, the atmosphere became strangely quiet. But Chen Laogu understood the child he had raised from infancy very well. Seeing his stammering demeanor, he knew exactly what the boy was thinking. "Brat, don't beat around the bush with me. If you want to ask something, ask it now." This single sentence from old Chen touched Chen Xiaomian's heart. It was something he hadn't dared to ask for so long, yet he still held a glimmer of hope. Chen Laogu put out the cigarette in his hand, deciding not to drag things out with the kid any longer. "Even if you don't ask, I will tell you. You probably know it well. I am not your biological father, right?" Chen Xiaobian replied, "You've never had a wife in your life. Where would you get a son like me? I'm not stupid." In fact, there were some things Chen Xiaobian had known for a long time. It was just that he didn't want to and didn't dare to ask. He was afraid Chen Laogo would worry, and also afraid of asking about things he himself didn't want to hear. Chen Laogo actually knew his son's thoughts. Although he never mentioned it, that didn't mean he wouldn't speak of it. There are some matters that must be faced sooner or later, and Chen Laogo believed that tonight was the right time. This matter perhaps dates back to 19 years ago, on a full moon night. To save a friend's life, Chen Laogo went deep underground in the area near Guanling village to search for an object.
However, the danger there exceeded Chen Laogu's expectations. Not only did he fail to find the item, but he almost lost his life. At the final moment, Chen Laogu immediately made a decision to save his life. He dug a hole and crawled up from underground. At this moment, Chen Laogu only had half a life left. His whole body was injured, and he no longer had the imposing air he possessed before going down. However, right now Chen Laogu dared not rest, fearing that the thing underground would crawl up, so he ceaselessly searched for stones to plug that hole. This action exhausted Chen Laogu greatly. His only thought now was to quickly block the hole and leave to recover his health. But at this moment, going down the mountain was a difficult task. His chest felt sharp pains and waves. Darkness was before his eyes, and he could encounter dangerous things in this forest at any time. Chen Laogu gritted his teeth to endure, gathered his spirits, and followed the trail down the mountain. However, what Chen Laogu feared was not wrong. After going down just a short distance, he encountered danger. Before his eyes was a pack of animals fighting over a corpse to eat. At first, he thought it was a pack of wolves, but after looking closely, Chen Laogu felt cold all over. It turned out to be a pack of corpse-eating dogs. What they were eating was a corpse just dug up from a grave, and they were even more terrifying than wolves. These dogs were very sharp. Hearing human footsteps approaching, they immediately raised their heads, revealing ferocious looks directed at Chen Laogu. At this moment, Chen Laogu felt a bit of despair. If it were normal times, bringing his pack of dogs or relying on his own skills, he wouldn't let these dogs take advantage of him. But right now, let alone the precious sword dropped underground, even breathing normally hurt. How could he deal with these dogs with such ferocious eyes? No matter what Chen Laogu thought, the pack of dogs had already surrounded him. He could neither advance nor retreat. Chen Laogu gripped the Guanding sword he carried with him tightly. He thought to himself that even if he died here today, he had to take down a few of these mad dogs. In the blink of an eye, the dogs rushed in to attack. Just when old Chen had run out of ways to cope and thought he would die here, suddenly a dog's howl was heard. The pack of dogs seemed to hear a command and simultaneously stopped their attack.
Chen Laogu listened carefully to the sound. It was coming from the direction of that grave. It was a wheezing sound emanating from a dog's throat, and the more he listened, the more terrified he felt. Before long, a white dog with a callus on its head emerged from the grave. It appeared to be the leader of the pack here. Only then did Chen Laogu notice that the dog was carrying a blood-soaked newborn baby in its mouth, looking as if it had just been born not long ago. Waiting for the dog carrying the child to approach Chen Laogu, the surrounding dogs instinctively retreated, clearing a path for their leader with a very respectful attitude. Chen Laogu didn't know what this dog intended to do, so he stood perfectly still, not daring to move. Unexpectedly, the white dog gently walked up to Chen Laogu and placed the newborn baby at his feet. Afterward, it turned to leave but didn't forget to look back at Chen Laogu and then at the baby. Chen Laogu carefully examined the newborn and discovered that the child seemed to be alive. Although very weak, there was still a glimmer of hope. Chen Laogu stood there frozen for a long time. This was a newborn child. Why would it be dragged out of a grave by a corpse-eating dog? Could this child be a ghost child? But this was no time to think too much. Chen Laogu bent down and held the baby in his arms. Chen Laogu also realized this was the corpse-eating dog's intention. At that moment, its eyes looked somewhat human. After handing the baby over to Chen Laogu, the alpha dog howled once, and the entire pack followed it as it left. Chen Laogu understood the corpse-eating dog's meaning and was suddenly moved. He called out, and the corpse-eating dog, seemingly understanding human speech, stopped and turned to look at him. Holding the baby in one arm, Chen Laogu took an object from his sleeve with the other hand and threw it to the corpse-eating dog. "Take this, it will be useful to you." The item Chen Laogu threw to the corpse-eating dog was called meat lingxi, known in folklore as tai sui meat. For corpse-eating dogs, this is an extremely beneficial item.
Originally, Chen Laogu wanted to keep that thing for himself, someone who frequently dug underground, to nourish his body. However, at that moment, that corpse-eating dog seemed somewhat benevolent, so he gave it to the dog as a thank you gift. Then Laogu carefully carried the child down the mountain. Since then, Chen Laogu considered himself to have formed a friendship with this corpse-eating dog. Later, thanks to its help, he dealt with quite a few ferocious beasts. From then on, Chen Laogu also stopped doing jobs like digging graves, bringing Chen Xiaobian to live at the foot of the mountain in Guanling village until now. And that child was indeed Chen Xiaobian.
As for who Xiao Bian's biological parents were, Chen Laogo didn't know either. That grave had no spirit tablet, nor any burial objects. Because Xiao Bian was dragged out of a coffin by the corpse-eating dog, his body had always been weak, and Chen Laogo spent a lot of effort raising him. The past dozen years had been extremely difficult. That was also the reason why he was named Xiao Bian, and why he was made to wear an earring, all for a specific reason. But what Chen Laogo didn't expect was that Chen Xiaobian showed no reaction to his extremely terrifying background, instead just burying his head in his meal. Although it's said that you are a child of a ghost, I have always regarded you as my own son. You stinky brat, stop pretending to shovel rice into your mouth. Your bowl has been empty for a long time.
Right when the father and son were in a moment of awkward silence, someone burst into the room. It turned out that this young man's mother in the back village was possessed, so he rushed here to find Chen Lagu for help. This incident coincidentally resolved the awkward situation between the father and son. Actually, in Chen Xiaobian's heart, who his biological parents were didn't matter anymore. Having a father like Chen Lagu was more than enough. This result, on the contrary, made Chen Xiaobian feel more relieved. It was another full moon hanging in the sky, and even more dangers in the future were awaiting the Chen family father and son. Chap 6. Coffin Mushroom. The Chen family father and son were dragged away from their meal by Bai from the back village. The three of them were rushing to Bai's house. Chen Xiaobian asked while walking, Bai, what exactly is wrong with your mother? Bai didn't say it straight out, but told Chen Xiaobian he would know as soon as he arrived. It turned out that after Bai's mother finished dinner, she felt a headache, so she went to lie down on the bed for a bit, but this time she lay still without any movement. Moreover, her demeanor seemed to transform into a different person, constantly cursing very strange things. The three of them talked while walking into Bai's house. Just as they approached Bai's house, they heard cursing sounds, sometimes deep, sometimes high-pitched. Damaged my cave dwelling and ate my food. I will make you die an ugly death. Having been neighbors for over 10 years, Chen Lagu knew immediately upon hearing it that it wasn't Bai's mother's voice. Knowing for sure she was possessed, he immediately sped up into the house. Just as they entered the door, Bai spoke up. Dad, I brought Chen Lagu here. Bai's father was quite close with Chen Lagu. Seeing his wife like that, he was sweating profusely, constantly staying by her side. Chen Lagu quickly went to the bedside to examine Bai's mother's condition. Bai's father recounted that ever since dinner she had been like this, and they didn't know who she was cursing. At this moment, Bai's mother's whole body seemed to be pressed down by something invisible, unable to move. Only her eyes were staring wide open, but the pupils could not be seen.
Although the body could not move, the mouth kept cursing at people, and the cursing grew louder and louder. It was very vicious. Listening to the tone, it seemed as if Zhuang's mother had done something to offend it. Chen Laogo showed no expression, simply standing aside and listening to the cursing, while the others dared not to disturb him. After listening attentively for a while, Chen Laogo mostly understood the situation. He turned to ask Zhuang's father what Zhuang's mother had been doing all day. Seeing that his father was drunk and slurring his words, Zhuang interjected, saying that besides washing clothes and cooking, his mother had gone mushroom picking and gathered quite a lot. Upon hearing about the mushrooms, Chen Laogo immediately turned to look at the basket of mushrooms on the table near the door.
It turned out that as soon as he entered the house, Chen Laogo had noticed the basket of fresh mushrooms still emitting a damp yin aura on the table. At that time, he felt something was wrong, but because he was in a hurry to check on Bai's mother, he ignored it. When Bai finished speaking, Chen Laogo walked over to examine those mushrooms, and he had already understood 80 or 90% of the situation in his heart. Xiao Bian wondered if these weren't just ordinary mushrooms, but Laogo shook his head, saying it wasn't that simple. Laogo used his hand to break a mushroom in half. At this moment, Chen Laogo discovered that looking at the cross-section, there was a black thread inside. Chen Xiaobian felt very strange. He had never seen a black thread inside a mushroom before. Chen Laogo told Bai to find the person who went with his mother to pick mushrooms earlier, saying they had to find the place where these mushrooms grew. Having only rested for 2 days, and now hearing his father say they had to go up the mountain again, Chen Xiaobian felt a bit annoyed.
Laogo said Airbai's mother might not be able to last until tomorrow morning, so stop talking and go get the lamp quickly. Even if Xiaobian didn't want to go, he still had to follow his father's arrangement, so the four of them went up the mountain together. However, along the way, Xiaobian's attitude was very cheerful, and the annoyance from earlier was gone. It turned out that this morning, Chun-Ni had followed Airbai's mother and a few others up the mountain to pick mushrooms. Chun-Ni was the one Airbai sought out to guide them. With Chun-Ni guiding the way, Xiaobian talked very happily throughout the journey, laughing and joking as they walked. Not only did he not feel bored, but he also felt that time was passing so quickly.
They quickly arrived at the place where they had picked mushrooms that afternoon. Chun-Ni pointed to the patch of land in front, saying they had gathered mushrooms in this area. The three of them went up to inspect it. The small hillside was overgrown with various grasses and plenty of other ground mushrooms. Chun-Ni recounted that second aunt said she had discovered this place, so they weren't allowed to pick or touch anything. Hearing Chun-Ni say this, they almost laughed out loud. If everyone had picked them, perhaps Erzwang's mother wouldn't have ended up like this. At this moment, Chen Laogo stepped onto that mound of earth, raised his leg, and stomped down hard. Chen Laogo had just stomped, seemingly without using much strength, yet indeed beneath it, everyone saw several pieces of wood. These wooden pieces were all broken by Chen Laogo's stomp, revealing a pitch-black hole underneath. But when everyone looked closely, their blood ran cold. Beneath the wood lay human bones. It was unknown how many years had passed, but under that rotten wooden coffin and the pile of bones, mushrooms were growing in abundance. At this point, Erzwang and Chun-Ni were so scared they retreated backward. Chen Xiaobian finally understood. Chen Laogo had known early on about the type of mushrooms that grow on this coffin. Seeing Chen Laogo throw the mushroom aside, he bent down toward the hole to dig. Chen Laogo took out a short bamboo tube covered with a red cloth from his bag. While tearing off the red cloth, he instructed Chen Xiaobian, "Stinking brat, watch carefully. These are all skills you should learn." Chen Laogo hooked out a piece of fresh meat from the bamboo tube, showed it to Chen Xiaobian, and then threw it inside. This was a piece of fresh chicken meat. To certain entities, this is an irresistible type of food.
Next, Chen Laogo carefully placed the bamboo tube containing chicken meat on top of the skeleton's head. Everyone was unaware of what Chen Laogo was planning to do. Seeing his silent and cautious demeanor, no one dared to speak up, only following him from a distance of about 10 meters. Chen Xiaobian really couldn't hold it in anymore and whispered a question to his father, but Chen Laogo didn't explain to him. He only told him to watch the skeleton in the bamboo tube. Although Chen Xiaobian was blaming his father for being increasingly pretentious, he still listened to his father's words, his eyes always tracking the target. Chen Xiaobian was born inside a coffin, so he had quite sharp eyes. He watched attentively for a while and indeed discovered something. The rotten skeleton suddenly moved abnormally, and this time it scared the little dog out of his wits. How could such a pile of rotten bones move? But Chen Laogo sitting next to him was very calm. With his father by his side, Chen Xiaobian gained more courage and continued to watch the strange movement of that corpse. Just at this moment, Chen Xiaobian discovered a large centipede crawling out of the dark hole in that eye socket. After a while, another centipede crawled out from the other eye socket. Those two large red centipedes seemed to be attracted by the smell of chicken meat in the bamboo tube and quickly crawled inside. Only at this moment could Chen Xiaobian understand that his father's true purpose was to catch those two centipedes. Originally thinking that catching those two centipedes wouldn't be difficult at all, Chen Xiaobian was about to rush over, but hearing his father's instructions, he had to be more careful. Those two moved very fast. If he let them escape, he wouldn't be able to catch them again. Chen Xiaobian also knew that these two centipedes were related to Erzwang's mother's life, so he didn't dare to be negligent. Carefully approaching the bamboo tube, deliberating for a long time, he finally spread the red cloth used for the lid on the ground. Then Chen Xiaobian quickly flipped the bamboo tube onto the red cloth. Chen Xiaobian's speed was so fast that the two centipedes didn't even have time to react before they were caught.
Chen Xiaobian's old habit flared up again. Thinking he had been very majestic just now, he turned around to brag to Chun-Ni. On the way down the mountain, Chen Xiaobian really wanted to cultivate feelings with Chun-Ni, but the dialogue between his father and heir Zhuang attracted his attention more. Therefore, throughout the journey, Chen Xiaobian couldn't say a few sentences to Chun-Ni, only focused on eavesdropping on his father and heir Zhuang talking. Heir Zhuang said, "Last time my father almost lost his life because of the fox spirit, but he still refuses to change." Chen Laogo encouraged him with a sentence, "Rest assured that fox spirit won't dare to come back again."
After taking Chun-Ni home first, the three of them returned to Zhuang's house. Chen Laogo just stepped into the house when he immediately looked for a basin and put those two centipedes inside. At first, everyone thought Chen Laogo intended to use these two centipedes to cook medicine or soak in wine or something. But who would have expected that he would bring those centipedes directly to Zhuang's mother? Chen Laogo took Zhuang's mother's hand and placed it directly into the basin with the two centipedes. Immediately, the two fierce centipedes rushed to bite her finger. Chen Xiaobian knew that his father was very capable, but seeing two centipedes biting Zhuang's mother's hand, he was also scared to death. This was what Chen Laogo called fighting poison with poison. Chen Laogo turned to teach Chen Xiaobian bit by bit. Poison in this world is inherently mutually generating and mutually inhibiting. These two centipedes living in that pile of rotten bones are exactly the medicine used to control this type of yin mushroom growing on the coffin. After Zhuang's mother was bitten on the finger by those two centipedes, that spot immediately turned black. The toxin did not spread everywhere, but instead formed a black line, going straight up along the arm.
About half an hour later, the black line on the left hand bulged prominently. At this moment, it transformed into two black lines running along the arm, finally accumulating all the poison blood at the middle finger. Chen Laogo felt that the time had come. He immediately approached the bed, used a needle to prick the black finger, and drained nearly half a basin of black blood, only stopping when the color turned red. At this time, Laogo got off the bed and told Bai's father and son that Bai's mother's illness had been cured and she would be fine when she woke up the next morning. By now, the complexion of Bai's mother had returned to normal, and she no longer opened her mouth to curse indiscriminately. Chen Laogo analyzed the situation. Bai's mother had accidentally stepped on and broken someone's coffin while picking mushrooms. If it weren't for that, that person wouldn't have possessed her body to seek revenge like this. Afterward, he instructed Bai's father and son to make arrangements to go up the mountain the next morning, to bury that corpse properly, then burn some spirit money for them and say an apology, and that would be enough. Having toiled through the whole night, the Chen father and son were finally able to return home. Bai's father and son politely said, "Sorry for troubling you two all night. Here is a small token of our gratitude. Please accept it." Laogo hurriedly refused. "We have been neighbors for many years. This is not necessary."
On the way back, Xiaobian asked, "Father, you're so honest. What's wrong with us taking a little bit?" Chen Laogo shook his head. "Do you want to be like those hospitals, treating people, charging tens of thousands of yuan just for a light cold?" Xiaobian scratched his head. "You could have taken a little, so our meal would have some meat." "Oh right, Father. What were you discussing with Zhuang earlier? Something about drinking wine and a fox spirit?" Old Chen walked and talked. That old man spent the whole night drinking with a monster, almost lost his life. Hearing such an interesting story, naturally Xiaobian eagerly asked Chen Laogo to tell him, "Do you know that because I was busy listening to you talk about this, Chun-Ni and I didn't say a word to each other the whole way?" Chapter 7. Drinking Wine. That day, Zhuang's family, wanting to thank Chen Laogo and his son, intentionally brought a hen as a gift of gratitude. Although Xiaobian felt the gift was a bit small, it had been a long time since there was a plate of meat on the table. The father and son had been craving meat for a while, so they immediately took the chicken to slaughter and cook. Xiaobian wanted to do it, but old Chen was afraid Xiaobian's skills would ruin their chicken. Besides knowing the arts of Qi Huang and Shuang Huang, old Chen's cooking skills were not average either. Once he started, the whole house was filled with a delicious aroma. By this time, Xiaobian's drool was flowing like a river. Unable to wait any longer, he raised his chopsticks to pick a piece, but unexpectedly he was blocked by Chen Laogo's chopsticks. Xiaobian immediately understood his father's intent. His father had worked hard all day, so logically he should let his father eat first. Chen Laogo did not stand on ceremony. He immediately picked up a chicken leg and a wing and put them on his plate. But surprisingly, after picking them up, old Chen didn't eat them but carried the plate out to the yard. This puzzled Xiaobian greatly. He only saw old Chen take the plate of food to the yard, whistle once, then place the food in the corner of the wall, adding a cup of white wine beside it.
Chen Xiaobian did not understand. Today was not any special holiday, so which deity was his father paying respects to? Chen Laogo did not answer Chen Xiaobian's question, simply pouring himself a cup of white wine. "Stop asking about this. Didn't you want to hear the story of how Erbai's father drank wine with a monster and nearly lost his life? After taking a sip of white wine, Chen Laogo began to slowly recount the story of Erbai's father meeting the monster to Chen Xiaobian. It was about 10 years ago, when Chen Xiaobian was still small. Erbai's father was quite a capable man in the village. When he had free time, he would often go into the city to trade some goods, as the city people wanted to buy items from the village. During one trip to the city to trade, Erbai's father met a spendthrift. This deal earned him quite a bit of money, so he bought some white wine to drink while walking back to the village. However, throughout the journey back, he constantly felt like something was following him. Furthermore, that watching gaze was very intense.
He walked while turning his head back to look several times, but saw no one. Finally, without thinking much, he staggered back towards the village. Zhuao's father didn't return to his own home, but took a bottle of white wine to the Law family home. Mr. Law was the principal of the village elementary school. The relationship between the two was quite close. Furthermore, Principal Law lived alone, so there was no need to be formal about time whenever he visited. Speaking of these two, they were both alcohol enthusiasts who loved drinking together. Zhuang's father had a quite good alcohol tolerance, while Principal Law's was limited. Zhuang's father was a heavy drinker, often starting with a whole bottle of white wine. Old Law could only handle a couple of cups at most. Zhuang's father drank while listening to Principal Law tell stories, fables, and classic references, just like he was giving a lecture. One liked to drink, one liked to talk. Just like that, they became a pair of drinking buddies, often sitting down to drink together. That day was no exception. Drinks were quickly set out on the table. That day, Zhuang's father had earned quite a bit of money, so he was in a very good mood. He brought over 2 bottles of white wine, which were almost finished. Principal Law didn't drink much, only sipping a few mouthfuls. Fortunately, the two were used to this. Zhuang's father didn't force him to drink and happily sat drinking alone. However, Zhuang's father drank very enthusiastically. Just a few gulps and a glass was gone. That day, Zhuang's father even went to the best chicken shop in town to buy a roast chicken as a snack. The two got along very well, so the conversation dragged on. Everything was normal that day, but then Principal Law went out to use the restroom, and upon returning, something happened. After Principal Law came back, he sat down to eat and drink. Zhuang's father didn't pay much attention and kept pouring wine for himself. Later, Zhuang's father realized that he had spoken dozens of sentences, but Old Law hadn't answered. Feeling something was strange, he looked up and immediately froze. At this moment, Zhuang's father discovered that Old Law was pouring wine for himself. Normally, his alcohol tolerance was very poor, and he never poured his own wine. Furthermore, he even pulled the plate of roast chicken towards himself. Not only that, Old Law then picked up the wine glass and drained it in one gulp. As soon as he finished that gulp, Old Law bowed his head to pour a second glass. Zhuang's father felt it was very strange, but no matter how he asked, Principal Law would not answer.
Erbai's father felt more and more that something was wrong. Old Law's expression was very strange, a grotesque smile blooming on his face. He kept chugging wine continuously, then bowed his head to grab the roast chicken with his hands, gnawing on it madly. One must know that Principal Law was a cultured and famous person in the village. His speech and daily gestures were always very elegant, but now he was exactly like a hungry dog, only caring about grabbing the chicken to eat, with no trace of his usual demeanor. Although Erbai's father felt that Principal Law was acting very strangely today, he didn't think too much about it, simply feeling that the man had probably drunk too much and couldn't control himself. He could only stare wide-eyed as Principal Law ate the whole chicken and kept drinking wine, while Erbai's father himself could only hold a few pieces of radish, eating and making small talk. At this moment, Principal Law seemed unable to understand what Erbai's father was saying, continuing to hold his wine glass and pour a few more cups to drink. Seeing that the greater part of these 2 bottles of wine had gone into Old Law's belly, Erbai's father quickly picked up his own glass to drink, fearing that with Old Law's current appearance, he might even snatch his wine away. However, at this moment, Erbai's father noticed that Old Law chugged the wine to the very last drop, which made him very uncomfortable. The custom in the village was that one should not drink the last drop of wine. Doing so was a sign of disrespect towards the guest. Suddenly, Old Law slammed his face onto the table with a loud thud, shaking the entire dining table. This scared Erbai's father to death. Could it be that Old Law had a stroke and died after drinking 2 bottles of wine? If so, he wouldn't be able to avoid involvement. But after being patted a few times by Erbai's father, Old Law groggily woke up. Only then did Erbai's father feel more at ease. It seemed Old Law really had drunk too much. What was even more infuriating was that when Old Law woke up, he claimed he had been sleeping the whole time and asked why the wine was gone, as if the person drinking just now wasn't him. After waking up, Old Law basically didn't remember how rudely he had been drinking, and even blamed Erbai's father for eating all the food while he was asleep, not leaving him a single piece of the roast chicken. Both were a bit confused and couldn't explain it, and since the wine was finished, they decided to disperse. Just as Erbai's father stepped out into Old Law's yard, he noticed a dark shadow in the corner of the wall. With the help of the moonlight, they looked closer and discovered a large dog sleeping soundly in the corner. But upon getting closer, they realized it wasn't a large dog at all, but a fox spirit. The closer they got, the stronger the smell of alcohol on the fox's body became. Although in front of them was a fox spirit drunk to the point of being limp, Old Law felt that this creature had too strong of an evil aura and didn't dare to touch it. However, Erbai's father thought this was an extremely expensive item, especially the fox's fur. Since Old Law had just mooched a meal off Erbai's father, he had to help out a bit. The two of them tied the fox's legs to a large tree in the backyard, waiting until nearly dawn to skin the fox and sell it. Although Erbai's father told Old Law that if anything happened, he would take responsibility, who would have thought that something would actually happen, and he didn't even know if he could handle it? Erbai's father just went home to sleep. In the middle of the night, Erbai's mother, lying next to him, suddenly heard him let out a howl, scaring the soul out of her. But by this time, Erbai's father was showing signs of being completely abnormal.
His limbs contracted, his whole body trembled, and he cursed incessantly. "I just drank a little of your wine and ate a little of your meat. Is it necessary to be this vicious?" Later on, his whole body convulsed even more violently, his breathing became intermittent, and his face grew increasingly pale. Erzwang's mother immediately went to find Chen Lago to come and check. When Lago arrived, Erzwang's father was already in critical condition. His eyes were rolled back, his mouth was full of saliva. If he had been a few minutes later, this life would have been lost. Chen Lago knew that tonight Erzwang's father had tied up a fox spirit, so Chen Lago understood the situation in his heart. Going to the backyard, Lago immediately saw a very large fox spirit. The fox spirit had started to wake up by then. Seeing someone approaching, it struggled and cried out incessantly, looking at Lago with resentful eyes.
Seeing the fox spirit tied up like a sticky rice cake, bon tête, Chen Lago couldn't help but find it amusing. He had heard plenty of stories about foxes stealing food and drink, but losing one's life over such a small matter was rare. Craving a taste of the human world and suffering a little punishment was deserved, but if it harmed human lives, the sin would be much heavier. Chen Lago thought that, besides stealing, this fox spirit hadn't harmed anyone, so he untied it to let it go. That fox spirit also had some cultivation. It knew that Chen Lago standing before it was no ordinary person. It glanced at him a few times, spared Erzwang's father's life, and turned to leave. Before it left, Lago spoke up. "In the future, if you want food or drink, come find me at West Village." Hearing Lago's last sentence, the fox spirit stood there staring at Lago for half an hour without moving, wondering what it was thinking. Finally, a while later, it agreed to leave, running straight into the deep forest, and had disappeared since then. Later, that fox spirit proved to have a conscience. It had helped Lago with quite a few things, becoming something of a friend, and often came here. Hearing this, Chen Xiaobian understood that plate of food was what his father brought out for this fox spirit to eat. Then Xiaobian immediately reacted. His father was utilizing the methods of the wild immortals, so wouldn't that make him a Chuma Da Xian? This discovery made Xiaobian almost jump for joy. Xiaobian had only heard others say this was very mysterious before. He never expected his own father to be a Chuma Xian. Just then, suddenly from the courtyard came the clinking sound of dishes. The Chen father and son both looked out the door. It seemed the fox spirit had arrived. Xiaobian discovered that the plate of food and the cup of wine his father placed under the door had been eaten clean, and he didn't even know when it had been eaten.
In addition, Chen Xiaobian also saw a dark shadow outside, a massive fox spirit standing there. This fox had fur that was a mix of black and yellow, and its eyes emitted a green light. At this moment, it was bowing its head to Chen Laogo, as if thanking him for the meal. The fox spirit didn't stay long after eating. After bowing in gratitude, it disappeared into the dark night. Chen Xiaobian asked his father again, "I heard that Chuma Shan is very powerful." Chen Laogo replied, "Powerful? Of course it's powerful. Do you want it? I'll pass it down to you. There are many ways to practice Chuma. It can be called divination, or it can be called soul summoning." Chapter 8. The Small Shrine Under the Locust Tree. Early in the morning, Chen Xiaobian was dragged out of bed by Chen Laogo. For someone who loved to sleep in like him, it was naturally very annoying. "Father, we don't farm the land, so why do we have to get up this early?" The two of them walked along the road out of the village. At this time, Chen Laogo asked Chen Xiaobian again about inheriting the Chuma Shan tradition, but Xiaobian always wanted to build a career in the city. He believed that young people nowadays should go to the city to learn and develop. If his whole life was just about spirits and wandering around, it really wouldn't fit. Chen Laogo knew that his son responded to persuasion but not coercion, so he didn't rush. He then mentioned the methods and origins of Chuma Shan. This Chuma Shan business was not like the deceptive dark arts used to scam people in the underworld. The immortal families would definitely guide him on a path to transcend the human realm. Sure enough, no one understands a son better than his father. Chen Laogo had only said a few sentences when he immediately caught Chen Xiaobian's attention. With the protection of the immortal families, one could not only foresee danger, but also gain the vision of the immortal realm. Seeing Xiaobian getting more and more excited as he listened, Chen Laogo told a story about catching demons from over 10 years ago. Back then, if it weren't for the help of a few immortal families, how could your father have subdued those ferocious beasts following the dark path? Over 10 years ago, on a beautiful day just like this, Chen Laogo took the 5-year-old child Chen Xiaobian out to the street. At that time, in the empty lot to the west of the village, there was a locust tree that was several hundred years old. This locust tree was so large that it took 6 or 7 people to fully embrace it. Although it had been hundreds of years, the tree was still lush with branches and leaves. Hung on the branches of this locust tree were many red strips of cloth from the villagers nearby. The red cloths had the names and bazi of children written on them, to pray for blessings so that the children would eat well, grow quickly, and be healthy like this centennial tree. Under the tree there was a small shrine, origin unknown. Although called a shrine, it was just a few stones piled up. In front of that shrine was a piece of wood serving as a table for passerbys to make offerings. If people in the village had headaches or were cursed by dark arts, they would all come here to worship the tree god. It must be said that it was truly very efficacious.
Under that tree was a blue stone, upon which were several hollows filled with pure, crystal-clear water. If a family had someone suffering from boils, washing with this water would make them subside immediately. The miraculous nature of the tree was passed down by word of mouth among the villagers, becoming increasingly famous. Because of Chen Xiaobian's special constitution, he had been sickly since childhood. Chen Laogo heard that this tree was very spiritual, so he intended to bring Chen Xiaobian there to acknowledge it as a godfather. The father and son approached the massive tree to take a look. It was indeed sturdy and huge. Chen Laogo began to feel that the village rumors were true, and he felt very pleased. Unexpectedly, upon getting close to the tree, Chen Xiaobian felt terrified, only able to tightly grip the sleeve and hide behind Chen Laogo's back. Old Chen knew that Chen Xiaobian possessed yin-yang eyes, so he immediately began to be on his guard.
Observing more carefully, Chen Laogo discovered that if it were a tree that had cultivated for so long, it would emit a fragrant, woody scent spreading everywhere. But standing under this tree, not only could he not smell any fragrance, on the contrary, he only smelled a foul, fishy, and damp stench. While feeling gloomy, Chen Laogo suddenly heard someone calling him from a distance behind, so he turned to look. He discovered someone waving at him not far behind the tree. That person was none other than Lu Dezhong's father. It turned out Degong's father saw Chen Laogo bringing his son here and guessed his purpose. However, he dared not go over there and offend the tree god, so he could only call the two of them from a distance. Degong's father was a very superstitious person and felt it wasn't safe to talk there, so he invited the father and son home. Don't acknowledge that tree god as a godfather. Absolutely do not. Don't ask anything here. Let's talk when we get home. Upon arriving home, Dagong's father finally felt safe and began to speak incessantly. I tell you, Chen Laogo, that tree is not only ineffective now, but it also harms people. Who knows if it has turned into a tree demon? At this time, Chen Xiaobian was still young and only knew how to play in the yard with Dagong, who was 1 year older than him, completely unaware of what the two adults were discussing.
Hearing Dagong's father say that, Chen Laogo suddenly remembered that back then many people came here to worship. It was very bustling, but now it was indeed deserted without a single soul. Chen Laogo was unclear about what had happened, so he immediately asked Dagong's father to explain the situation in detail. Dagong's father loved telling stories, especially chatting with Chen Laogo. Seeing Laogo ask, he immediately recounted what he had heard. It was a few months ago. A whole family from the neighboring village brought a child here to offer sacrifices and acknowledge the pagoda tree as a godfather, praying for the child to grow up smoothly. Everything was done according to the rules, hanging a piece of red cloth inscribed with the child's 8 characters of birth, Bazi, on the tree, then kowtowing 3 times to worship the pagoda tree. After that, they took water from the hollow of the blue stone and washed the child from the forehead down. Thus, the ritual of acknowledging a godfather was complete. The 3 of them finished this not too complex ritual, offered some food, burned spirit money, and then took the child back. However, what they did not expect was that this ritual to acknowledge a godfather brought no blessings, but instead invited disaster. That night upon returning, the child suddenly fell seriously ill. In a short time, he went from a lively child to one who could only lie still and motionless. The child drifted between consciousness and delirium, claiming to see a pair of fierce red eyes on the pagoda tree staring at him. Later, before the boy could be taken to the hospital, he died. The doctor concluded that the boy died of heart failure. There was no other pathology. Afterward, rumors began to spread that the pagoda tree had turned into a tree demon and sucked away the boy's soul. Just this incident alone would not have been enough to cause the villagers to speculate so much, but then another matter occurred. A month ago, a young man traveling at night from the city to get back to the village in time saw a white shadow when he passed by the pagoda tree. The young man looked closely and was scared out of his wits. He saw the small shrine at the base of the pagoda tree emitting a white light, like a snake coiling around a young girl. That girl must have been a ghost because her body was transparent. Her soul, wrapped in those rays of light, was swaying in the air. The young man looked carefully and saw it was the young girl who had died not long ago in the village. It seemed she had indeed been soul-sucked by this pagoda tree, leading to her death.
The young man was terrified to the extreme by this scene. He screamed and hurriedly ran back to the village to report the incident to everyone. From then on, rumors about the tree demons spread everywhere, and no one dared to bring their children there to acknowledge it as a godfather anymore. Dagong's father smoked a cigarette and recounted everything related to that ghostly pagoda tree to Chen Laogo. Villagers in several nearby villages have had accidents one after another. Old Chen, tell me, how could this be fake? After hearing the story, Chen Laogo bowed his head in thought for a while, then formed a plan in his heart. Old Lu, please help me look after Xiaobian. I have some business to attend to. Chen Laogo left his son at Dagong's father's place and walked straight out the door. He wanted to clarify what was actually going on with this pagoda tree. Chen Laogo went straight to the pagoda tree, sat on a big rock, and smoked a cigarette. He waited for half a day, but saw no movement from the tree. With no other choice, Chen Laogo took out a handful of glutinous rice, scattered it into a circle on the ground, and chanted a few phrases in his heart. Immediately, the image of a great fox appeared in his mind. The great fox said to Chen Laogo, "The pagoda tree has lived for many years, so it possesses some Taoist attainment. It has cultivated good karma and always helps people. This time, the thing causing trouble is not the pagoda tree, but a monster that has made its den inside the tree roots. After that monster occupied this place, it forced the pagoda tree to do evil deeds with it, having long since entered the demonic path. This monster relied on the birth dates and 8 characters, Bazi, of the children who acknowledged the locust tree as their godfather to capture their souls. In order to increase its power and lifespan, the locust tree also received quite a few benefits, so it accepted doing evil deeds. Regarding the background of this monster, the fox spirit only revealed that it was a monster of the Bai family, but in his heart, Chen Laogo had already guessed it.
Since he had encountered it, how could he not intervene and let this monster run wild? So Chen Laogo arranged everything properly. Night fell quickly, moonlight illuminating the entire forest. Chen Laogo brought all the bewitching and attractive offerings. He came to kneel before that small shrine to pray. After finishing these things, Chen Laogo pretended to leave, but in reality he made a large circle around the tree. While walking around the locust tree, Chen Laogo arranged powerful talismans on all four sides. After the preparations were complete, Chen Laogo stood behind the formation and watched the small shrine, just waiting for the monster to take the bait. Not long after, sure enough, a stream of yin aura emitted from the small shrine, along with a terrifying yellow eye. Seeing the monster take the bait, Chen Laogo immediately took the final talisman and pasted it on the ground. At this moment, the talismans in all four directions took effect, blocking any nearby spirits and not allowing them to approach.
As soon as the talismans took effect, the evil spirit immediately sensed it, and the small shrine flashed with light. The monster intended to possess the locust tree, but Chen Laogo had already arranged for the big fox to stand guard between the tree and the shrine, effectively preventing the monster from doing so. The monster tried to run up the tree branches, but discovered an owl perched there, staring down at it with deadly eyes. All escape routes were blocked, trapping the monster in the small shrine. However, this evil creature showed no remorse. It bared its teeth, growling and glaring fiercely at Chen Laogo. Seeing this, Chen Laogo turned his back and walked away. Upon receiving the command, the big fox and the owl rushed into the small shrine together. The cultivation of this monster was no match for these two, but it still tried to resist to the end. After dealing with the Bai family's monster, Chen Laogo left the locust tree alone, as it had been coerced and had also helped the villagers in the past. He hoped it would cultivate the righteous path in the future. However, it seemed that heaven's will was set. The crimes of the Bai family's monster and the locust tree hooking souls could not be denied. Out of nowhere, dark clouds gathered, accompanied by a thunderstorm. Terrifying lightning struck down from the sky, hitting the 100-year-old locust tree. With a loud crack, the tree was split in two and burned to ash. It seemed heaven's will was unavoidable. Chen Xiaobian was so engrossed in the story that he didn't realize Chen Laogo had led him to a wasteland. At this moment, Chen Laogo just kept looking straight ahead. In front of Chen Xiaobian lay a tree stump that had been burned many years ago. But for what purpose did Chen Laogo bring him here? Chapter 9. Blind Old Liu Tells a Fortune. Chen Xiaobian followed Chen Laogo's instructions, bringing a shovel from home to dig a hole in front of that burnt tree. Although the tree was burnt, its roots still penetrated deep into the ground. Therefore, Chen Xiaobian dug for half a day and began to lose patience. Chen Laogo mocked him. "You want to give up with just this? And you still claim you want to follow me to learn tomb raiding?" But upon hearing his father's words, Chen Xiaobian continued trying to dig, because he had wanted to follow his father to learn tomb raiding for a long time, but his father had never agreed until now. After digging for a while longer, sure enough, as Chen Laogo had said, there was a pitch-black cave under the tree roots. Chen Xiaobian immediately told his father what he saw. Chen Laogo had anticipated this and was not surprised. He handed Chen Xiaobian a glove and told him to use his hand to pull the object out from inside. Like any normal person, putting a hand into a dark hole of unknown origin made Chen Xiaobian a bit scared, but with his father sitting right there, he had no choice but to grit his teeth and reach in. Chen Xiaobian summoned all his courage and reached deep down. Indeed, he felt something that was just like a watermelon.
Chen Xiaobian didn't care what it was. He slowly and carefully hooked it out, reaching out to hand it to Chen Laogo, who was sitting nearby. Bringing the object up to the ground, Chen Xiaobian finally saw it clearly. It turned out to be an old hedgehog that had died a few years ago, yet its corpse had not decomposed at all. The quills on its body were still intact. This was extremely strange. Even stranger was that the hedgehog was tightly hugging a snow-white luminous pearl, beautiful as a piece of transparent crystal. Chen Laogo also knew a bit about this object. Fearing Chen Xiaobian might carelessly step on and crush it, he told him to stand aside and went to check it himself. As he examined it, Chen Laogo told Chen Xiaobian about the legend of the 5 great immortals. Other cultivating animals create luminous pearls inside their bodies, but only the hedgehog species uses its body to embrace the luminous pearl, which is why the ancients had the saying, hedgehog hugging pearl. Moreover, this hedgehog even left behind its quills, which was truly a good deed. Very quickly, that luminous pearl was removed from the hedgehog's body, and a pile of about 10 sharp quills was also extracted.
Chen Laogo carefully wrapped those two things in a bag, then told Chen Xiaobian to go to the market with him. Their father and son family belonged to the poor class of Guanling village. They had no fields and were not allowed to practice medicine, so their lives were truly miserable. That was why Chen Xiaobian had to wonder, if they had no money, what were they going to the market for? The father and son walked for about a mile when they met Erdzwang from the village. Seeing them going to the market, Erdzwang, who was going the same way, invited them to get on his cart for a ride. Although the life of the Chen father and son was indeed very hard, they had a very good reputation and popularity in the village. Chen Xiaobian understood a little in his heart, knowing that his father had just dug up a white luminous pearl and wanted to sell it to cover living expenses. But to sell it, shouldn't they go to the city? Why go to the market? However, there were some things that couldn't be said in front of Erbai, so he could only remain silent and hitch a ride on the tricycle to the market. 10 miles away from Guanling village was the road to Banmiao town. This was a rather large place. Today was a busy market day, with many people, extremely lively and bustling. After the father and son said goodbye to Erbai, they immediately went into the market to observe the liveliness of this place.
Chen Xiaobian had rarely left the village since childhood, and naturally he had never experienced such a bustling market gathering before. At that moment, his 2 eyes were truly not enough to take everything in. In truth, a market gathering like this wasn't anything special. It was just small stalls selling household goods, farming tools, or animal feed. However, for Xiaobian, who hadn't seen much of the world, these things were very novel. As Xiaobian walked and looked around, he suddenly saw a familiar face in the crowd before him. It was Chunni. It turned out that the last Chunni from the Liu family had brought homegrown vegetables to the market early in the morning to sell. But this made Xiaobian's thoughts drift sideways. He thought that since there were no adults from the Liu family here, he could go over and have a secret heart-to-heart with Chunni. But his plan was ruined by his father before it could even begin. Old Chen urged Xiaobian to hurry up, as they still had important business to attend to. Xiaobian was naturally reluctant, nagging aimlessly as he walked with his father. "Where exactly do you want to go, father? My stomach is growling with hunger." Chen Laogo seemed to see right through Xiaobian. "You want an excuse to go find Chunni, don't you? That little trick won't work." They walked for another 20 minutes, and just as Xiaobian was running out of patience, Chen Laogo finally spotted his target and stopped. Chen Laogo ignored Xiaobian's nagging and turned towards a blind fortune teller. Old blind man, scamming people again? The blind man's ears were very sharp. While reading the fortune for an old lady in front of him, he signaled to Chen Laogo. It seemed Chen Laogo was very familiar with this blind man. Without standing on ceremony, Chen Laogo sat down opposite him as soon as they met. He said something that no one else could understand. "Old blind man, cut the nonsense. The Kai Shan Ze has met the Zhuang Hu." The blind man nodded. "No wonder my left eyelid has been twitching all morning." To the eyes of those around them, Chen Laogo was simply seeking the blind man for a fortune reading. However, when seeing both Chen Laogo and the blind man pull down their long sleeves and hold hands inside them, Xiaobian immediately knew his father was using hand language. This was an old traditional method of communication in livestock markets and other black markets.
Nowadays, there aren't many people left who know how to use this thing. After responding for a while, the blind man was seen muttering something and then laughing loudly. It seemed he had figured out what the object was. Blind old Liu led the way, and the three of them turned here and there before arriving at a very bustling eatery in the town. Chen Xiaobian thought that this kind of transaction should be like what is shown on TV, finding a secluded place with few people to trade secretly. However, unexpectedly, it was such a crowded and lively market gathering, and moreover, completely open and above board. In fact, old hands in the Jianghu all know that places like these are where accidents are least likely to happen. This is called hiding in the market. Furthermore, the transaction this time involved a natural, ownerless object, so there was nothing illegal about it. Chen Laogo didn't pay attention to Chen Xiaobian anymore, raised his wine glass and negotiated with the blind man opposite him. 1 white luminous pearl, 4 red yang needles. How much will you pay? As soon as the price was mentioned, blind old Liu immediately lowered his head and began to ponder. The goods are excellent, but I can't offer a high price. Chen Laogo also knew clearly that business was difficult now, plus the two of them had a friendship of many years, so he didn't say much and nodded directly. Once the price was settled, blind old Liu turned away to check the goods,
while Chen Lao Go ordered another bowl of noodles for Chen Xiaobian. In this noisy eatery, everyone was focused on eating and drinking. No one paid attention to the three strange people. Chen Xiaobian happily lowered his head to eat the noodles, while Chen Lao Go and blind old Lu chatted and downed cups of white wine. The meal lasted for 2 hours. At this time, blind old Lu went to pay the bill, but it seemed that because he was blind, he didn't put the money in the right place.
Although Chen Xiaobian bowed his head and focused on eating, he still saw Chen Lao Go take a bag out of his sleeve and hand it to the blind man. Before blind old Lu left, he left something carefully wrapped in paper on the table. Chen Lao Go took the package, stuffed it into his sleeve, and led Chen Xiaobian out of the eatery. Chen Xiaobian anxiously asked, "How much did you sell it for, father?" Chen Lao Go shook his head and said, "I don't know, haven't counted yet." On the way home, Chen Lao Go said, "That blind Lu is also considered a mountain walker in this trade, a master as well. Because he was blinded in both eyes during a time he was identifying a dangerous treasure, he started this buying and selling business. The rule of this trade is that the broker can only take a cut from the treasure. This amount is calculated by himself. If it sells for more, he must give it to the mountain walker. Everyone knows mountain walkers are dangerous masters, so no one dares to violate the regulations." Chen Xiaobian always felt curious about those two items, but the road was quite crowded, so it wasn't convenient to ask. Now he really couldn't hold back. "So what exactly did you sell today, father? I saw those things didn't seem very valuable." Chen Lao Go said, "The corpse of that hedgehog is called White Immortal. The white luminous pearl is called White Spirit Pill, and its quills are called Gold Red Yang." It turned out that the things cultivated by the White Immortal had such significance. In the eyes of a mountain walker, although not considered a precious item, it was truly a rare find. That White Spirit Pill is naturally an object carrying yang energy. After grinding it into powder and drinking it, it helps people surrounded by yin aura, or those born with a yin constitution, to eliminate yin aura and increase yang energy. Its function is almost like fate-changing rebirth.
The red yang needle functions very well in restoring yang energy for those who often descend into tombs or frequently have to contact objects carrying a lot of yin aura. This is because hedgehogs love to eat various types of poison, and at the same time, they refine those toxins into pure yang energy hidden deep within their sharp quills. Chen Lao Go continued, "We mountain walkers belong to both the yin and yang realms. For us, these things are truly treasures. You should learn more in the future. There will come a day when you need to use them." Hearing Chen Lao Go speak, Chen Xiaobian was a bit surprised. He knew his father knew how to descend into tombs and exorcise evil, but this was the first time he had referred to himself as a mountain walker. What exactly was his father's identity? But he also knew clearly that if Chen Lao Go refused to speak, asking would be useless. After the two returned home, Chen Xiaobian was astonished once again, because when Chen Lao Go opened the package, Chen Xiaobian realized that inside was actually a large stack of money.
Although this 15,000 yuan might not be a huge amount for other families in the village, for Chen Xiaobian and Chen Laogo, who lived in hardship all year round, it was the first time Xiaobian had seen so much money. It would be strange if he wasn't excited. Their lives had been easier these past few days, and seeing such a large sum, Xiaobian was so happy he almost jumped up to celebrate. However, Chen Laogo said that they couldn't spend all this money. When destroying the monster of the Bai family, both the fox immoral and the owl had contributed, so there was a share for them here too. Chen Laogo wanted to use 2 parts of this money to share with the fox and the owl. Xiaobian hurriedly asked, "Then why didn't you sell all the remaining quills of the hedgehog, father? Wouldn't that mean more money?" Chen Laogo shook his head. "Those are kept for use. Living in this world, one shouldn't be greedy for wealth." Xiaobian understood this principle, but seeing the money on the table being divided, his heart felt cut, tears streaming down. Who told them to be so poor? Just then, the father and son heard the sound of a child crying miserably. They stuck their heads out to look and saw the owl spreading its wings and flying towards the tree branch in the yard. It was the same owl that had helped Chen Laogo destroy the Bai family's monster over 10 years ago. Who knew what business it had coming here late at night? But the owl didn't stay long. It just hooted a few greetings and then flapped its wings to fly towards the inner village.
Chen Laogo knew clearly in his heart that something must have happened to a family in the village, and moreover, this matter would likely require his help. The owl let out a mournful screech while circling above the village sky. After a few rounds, it landed on a large tree branch near a household in the West Village. This family was none other than the home of Wang Laosi, whom Chen Laogo had met while fishing this morning. Who knows what happened to his family? As the saying goes, the owl doesn't visit a house without cause. Appearing at night, this owl was inherently not considered a sign of good fortune in the village, so its appearance was certainly a bad omen. Chapter 10. Bringing the female ghost home. The soul-hooking bird, also known as the owl, had flown to perch on the large tree at old Wang's gate. Who knows what major event would happen to old Wang's family next? At this moment, Wang Laosi had just returned home not long ago, and his mood today was very good. Wang Laosi's household had only 3 people, the couple and a 5-year-old grandson, as their son was working in the city. Their income was decent, and they had a fruit orchard at home, so their life in the village could be considered quite good.
Wu Laosi usually had no hobbies. He only liked fishing. Today his luck was good. He caught a bucket of catfish, so he happily brought them home. Because he returned late today, his wife had already finished cooking, so he left the fish at the back door, and the 3 of them cleaned up to get ready to eat. While eating, his wife asked where he went fishing today that made him come back so late, making the grandson wait for dinner until he was hungry. Wu Laosi happily drank a sip of wine, then told his wife about today's fishing trip. At noon today, Wu Laosi cycled around the Huangni River in the west of the village. On the way, he met the Chen father and son studying a tree stump, greeted them briefly, and then continued towards the riverbank. During this time, his garden had just finished the first harvest, so Wu Laosi was quite busy and hadn't been fishing for many days. As soon as he arrived at the riverbank, he hurriedly left his bicycle and went to the river to fish. He baited the hook out of habit, but this time he sat for a long time without catching a single fish. Actually, in his heart, Wu Laosi also understood that recently the economy has developed. Houses are being built everywhere, there are more people than fish, so this time he just considered it as cultivating his body and mind.
That being said, what fisherman doesn't want to catch a big fish? How could one just watch without eating? As Laosi was thinking aimlessly, a sound suddenly came from the distance. Laosi looked in the direction of the sound. In a river branch not far away, something was jumping on the water surface and fell back down, creating a patch of bubbles. Relying on his many years of experience, Wang Laosi knew there might be a big fish over there, so he quickly packed up and moved to that spot. Wang Laosi didn't hope for much. Nowadays, fish were very cunning. Let alone fishing with a rod, even using a net might not guarantee a catch. He found a rock to sit on and cast his line, not thinking much more of it. Unexpectedly, just as he sat down, he suddenly felt something heavy. Sure enough, a fish had taken the bait, and he felt that this one wasn't small at all. His arms were going to be sore this time. As he pulled it up, he saw a black fish about 1 chi long. Old Wang looked closely for a moment and realized it was a catfish. Starting from the first one, Old Wang didn't have time to sit down. Every so often, another fish would bite.
He was so smug that he kept changing bait incessantly, not noticing that the sky had already turned dark. Wang Laosi was so excited that he lost track of time. By the time he returned home, it was already past 7 p.m. These catfish usually stay at the bottom of the river and rarely gather in groups, so he didn't know why there were so many of them today. His wife was helpless with Wang Laosi's temperament. As she was preparing dinner, she suddenly noticed that her grandchild, who had just complained of hunger, was not eating but simply staring blankly at his grandfather, his eyes revealing clear fear. The wife followed the grandchild's gaze and was suddenly startled herself. Just moments ago he was talking and laughing, but now Laosi had his head bowed exactly like a woman weeping from some deep grievance. Having lived with Wang Laosi for half a lifetime, she had never seen him like this before. Now Laosi's eyes were filled with tears, his hand covering his mouth, looking shy and unable to speak. Wang Laosi's wife felt it was very strange. He was normal just a moment ago. How could he suddenly burst into tears? She asked a few questions, but Laosi didn't answer. She stood up and leaned over towards Laosi, but unexpectedly Laosi recoiled and let out a frightened scream, the voice sounding both soft and high-pitched. Normally, Wang Laosi's personality was very strong. He had never acted so coquettishly. He seemed to have turned into a young girl, making even his wife feel like he was a stranger. Wang Laosi's wife took one look and knew he was possessed, so she immediately dragged the small grandchild along to find Chen Laogo.
Unexpectedly, Chen Laogo had already seen a soul-hooking bird perched in front of Lao Si's house, so he knew early on that something was wrong with his family and had taken the initiative to come over first. Laogo brought Xiao Bian along to meet Wang Laosi and was extremely surprised. As a neighbor who had known him for many years in the village, he had never seen such a coquettish old Wang. At this moment, seeing two strangers appear in the house, old Wang was so terrified that he shrank into the corner of the wall and screamed aloud.
Seeing Wu Laosi in this state, Chen Xiaobian couldn't help but chuckle. He had never seen anyone so old acting so effeminate. However, the moment Chen Laogo saw this scene, he already had a hunch. He turned around and asked Laoxi's wife where he had gone today. To understand Laoxi's background, according to Chen Laogo, Laosi had likely bumped into a guest, encountered a spirit. Before the wife could speak, the 5-year-old grandson, Lele, spoke up first. "I know, it's a female ghost. I saw it when Grandpa came home." Standing next to his father, Xiao Bian knew a thing or two. Children possess pure eyes and can often see unclean things. He bent down and asked Lele, "Tell Brother Bian, where did you see the female ghost?" Lele pointed at his grandfather and replied, "Right there, on Grandpa." Lele explained that while his grandmother was cooking, because he was very hungry, he looked out the window waiting for his grandfather to return for dinner. It wasn't until dark that he saw his grandfather cycling home. At first, Lele didn't see anything unusual, but when his grandfather entered the yard to unload things, the boy noticed someone being carried on the back of the bicycle. Although Lele was young, he knew at a glance that she was not a normal person. The woman was dripping wet from head to toe, sitting on the back as light as the wind, her body translucent. It seemed she knew Lele was watching her, as she looked back and smiled eerily. At that time, the grandfather was packing up his things, completely unaware of the woman standing behind him. When his grandfather entered the house, Lele looked at his back and found the woman had disappeared. However, Lele noticed something different about his grandfather compared to usual. There seemed to be a black shadow following behind him. Hearing Lele say this, fourth aunt believed the boy wasn't lying and immediately asked Chen Laogo, "Could it be that Laosi did something bad and is being haunted?" Based on Lele's description of the woman being covered in water, Chen Laogo surmised that she might be related to the fish Laosi had caught. Laoxi's wife pointed to the door and said the fish hadn't been touched yet and was still outside. The moment Chen Laogo saw the bucket of catfish, he immediately understood what was happening, though Xiao Bian looked on without a clue. Apart from having slightly large and fat heads, these fish didn't seem special at all. However, Chen Laogo recognized that these catfish had recently eaten a human corpse. After analyzing, he affirmed that there was definitely a dead body in that section of the river, and it was the body of a young woman. The identifying feature was simple. The catfish's whiskers were sharp, black, and tinged with red, a sure sign they had recently consumed the flesh of the dead.
The most important thing right now was still to quickly cure Laosi first. Chen Laogo said to Xiao Bian, "You hurry over there and restrain Laosi first." Xiao Bian was also afraid that as soon as he touched him, Laosi would scream like a chicken having its throat cut, so he immediately deployed his girl-flirting supernatural power, speaking gently and slowly taking hold of Laosi's hand. As soon as he grabbed Laosi's hand, Xiao Bian immediately wrapped his arms around and restrained him. Chen Laogo also praised him. "Stinking brat, you really have skills." At this moment, Chen Laogo took out a bamboo tube from his sleeve and pulled out the red yang needles from inside. Chen Laogo had Xiao Bian hold Laosi tight, while he himself grasped one of the old man's hands. As he worked, he spoke to the female ghost. "If you leave early, your sins will not be heavy."
Although Chen Laogo was getting on in years, he still possessed the strength of a tiger. He grasped Laosi's hand tightly and used the red yang needle to pierce his middle finger. It looked excruciating, yet Laogo still thrust with full force into Laosi's finger. Laogo didn't stab very deep, just enough to break the skin slightly, but Laosi screamed as if he were being stabbed to the very marrow. Knowing the red yang needle had taken effect, Laogo immediately told Xiao Bian to let go of Laosi. At this moment, Laosi was in ceaseless agony, his whole body trembling violently. Strangely, no matter how much pain he was in, the needle stuck in his hand did not fall off. Laogo spoke continuously. "Hurry up and come out, otherwise if I stab a little deeper, your soul will be scattered immediately." After a while like this, whether out of fear of Laogo's words or unable to withstand the yang energy of the red yang needle, Laosi's body suddenly shuddered violently, as if something was being pulled out from within, looking very strange. Although the female ghost had left the body,
and Laosi had regained his senses, his body remained frozen in that posture for half an hour. At this moment, Xiaobian's remark made old Chen laugh out loud. "Fourth uncle, although the female ghost has left, why are you still keeping that coquettish pose?" When Laosi's consciousness fully returned, the soul-hooking bird also flapped its wings and flew away. It seemed that what it was waiting for was not Laosi's death, but that female ghost.
Hearing the flapping sound of the soul-hooking bird, Chen Laogo immediately turned towards the window and said, "That is the soul of a woman who died unjustly. Take care of it carefully." Legend has it that the owl is a spiritual creature that guides souls. It has the duty of escorting souls down to the Yellow Springs for reincarnation. After recovering, Wu Laosi thanked the Chen father and son profusely. The Wu family saw old Chen and his son off, and out of gratitude, they gifted them a fish to eat. Naturally, Chen Laogo dared not accept those fish, turning back to instruct Laosi. "That fish cannot be eaten. When morning comes, dry it under the sunlight, then throw it away, and it will be fine." On the way back, Chen Xiaobian kept nagging continuously. "Father, that red yang needle is so expensive. We spent the whole night, plus a red yang needle, only to get a basket of chicken eggs in return. No matter how I think about it, it's a loss." Chen Laogo knew his son's personality, so he only listened to his nagging without replying. "No wonder our family stays poor forever. Turns out father doesn't know how to do business." Just as they reached the middle of the village, old Chen turned in another direction, leaving Chen Xiaobian somewhat confused. "Those chicken eggs will be needed soon. You cannot eat them." Chen Xiaobian asked again. "The eggs are gone too. Aren't we suffering a heavy loss? Where are we going now, father?" Old Chen replied, "To the riverbank to deal with that corpse. We cannot let the corpse pollute the river. There are many people using that river for their daily lives." Chapter 11. The Female Corpse Floating in the River. At the section of the Huangni River to the west of the village, Chen Xiaobian was standing there holding a chicken egg, nagging. Originally, he thought he would get to eat fried eggs or sunny-side-up eggs, as these chicken eggs were a thank-you gift from Wu Laosi. But now Chen Laogo decided to take this pile of eggs to handle the female corpse floating in the river. Chen Xiaobian had no other choice. He could only put on a pained expression and follow his father's arrangement. He knew that although his father was poor, he was a man of glorious reputation. Thus every single egg was thrown into the river, not a single one left. Those eggs, after being thrown into the river, floated for a while before sinking to the bottom. At this moment, Chen Laogo revealed his purpose. "Let the large creatures under the river move around for a while, and the corpse will automatically float to the water surface. We don't need to go down to retrieve the corpse." Hearing this, Chen Xiaobian finally understood. Not having to go into the water in this dark night was worth the loss of a few eggs. A few minutes after the chicken eggs sunk underwater, the river surface began bubbling entirely, as if there were large objects fighting for food down in the river.
After a while, this entire stretch of the river looked like a pot of boiling water. The surface was moving with bubbles, and hidden beneath were black creatures fighting for food. After another moment, the river surface became calm again. Sure enough, there was a black shadow resembling a human corpse under the water. But the strange thing was that this corpse could not float to the surface. This was somewhat beyond Chen Laogo's expectations. Normally, after a corpse has been soaked in the river for 2-3 days, coupled with the soul having left the body, it should float to the surface. Chen Laogo looked deep into the river and didn't detect anything pulling the corpse back, yet he still didn't know why it refused to float up. Chen Xiaobian focused his gaze down into the river. While he was concentrating and seeing nothing, he didn't notice Chen Laogo taking a stance behind him. Unexpectedly, right after that, Chen Xiaobian was kicked in the butt by Chen Laogo and flew straight into the river. Falling into the river, Chen Xiaobian immediately understood the problem. He had been tricked by his father. His father clearly wanted him to go down and retrieve the corpse. Chen Laogo knew that normally his son would run away immediately if things got difficult. If he didn't use this method to force him, there was no way he would agree to act. Chen Xiaobian was still very bitter and kept asking, "Aren't you afraid I'll die and there will be no one to carry out your funeral?"
Although Chen Xiaobian felt uncomfortable, Chen Laogo had always been like this, and he couldn't let the old man dive into the water in such a dark night. However, Chen Xiaobian's sharp tongue couldn't stop rambling. No wonder Dad has been single all his life. Treating his son like this, who would want to marry him? Chen Xiaobian had lived near the river since childhood,
so he was very familiar with the water. Taking a deep breath, he swam close to the corpse. However, he wasn't stupid enough to touch the corpse directly, but swam around it a few times to observe carefully. He saw nothing entangled around the corpse, yet it just suspended in the middle of the river like that, neither sinking nor floating. The corpse had been soaked for a long time. Many parts were swollen, and moreover, the eyes and mouth had been eaten messy by fish. Seeing no apparent problem, Chen Xiaobian dared to swim over to retrieve the body. Because his approach disturbed the water, the corpse also moved with the current. Coupled with the fact that the corpse was slimy, it was not easy to grab hold of it. Finally, Chen Xiaobian managed to touch the corpse to pull it up, but at that moment, a cold gaze emitted from the riverbed, making Chen Xiaobian feel a chill of fear.
Chen Xiaobian looked downwards and saw a massive, pitch-black creature staring at him with fierce, glowing red eyes. Xiaobian did not dare to hesitate. Gasping for air, he used all his might to drag the female corpse toward the shore. Fearing the thing in the river would give chase, Xiaobian gripped the corpse even tighter and swam at maximum speed. Xiaobian's strength was truly astonishing. In just a moment, he had reached the bank, dragging the body up with him. Once on shore, Xiaobian was nearly exhausted. Moreover, it was now autumn, and with the dark night, the river water was exceptionally cold, leaving Chen Xiaobian tired, soaking wet, and chilled to the bone. By this time, Chen Laogo had already started a fire by the riverbank for Xiaobian to warm himself. Laogo also carefully handed Xiaobian a sip of wine to warm his body. The wine Laogo gave his son was pure grain wine brewed by the villagers. After just 2 sips, Xiaobian felt a fire burning from his throat down to his belly. Xiaobian recounted to Chen Laogo what had just happened, mentioning the massive creature under the river staring at the corpse. Could the Dragon King want this corpse as a wife? After hearing his son's story, Laogo fell silent for a long time, as if recalling something. Laogo quickly ran over to the body to examine it meticulously. Xiaobian seized the opportunity to retaliate for his father pranking him earlier. "Dad, she's been soaked in water for so long. What's left for you to ogle? Why not go to a brothel and find some girls to look at instead?" After checking, Laogo clasped his hands behind his back and paced back and forth, but his expression was now pensive and worried. It seemed he had discovered something. It turned out to be one body with 2 lives. This female corpse was pregnant. Only after Laogo spoke did Xiaobian understand that the girl's belly wasn't swollen from being soaked in water for too long, but because she was with child. Although the woman's soul had departed, the child remained, which explained why the corpse neither floated nor sank, but stayed just below the surface. Laogo also seemed to understand why that massive creature in the river hadn't appeared for years, but was now targeting this female corpse. What it was after was the pure yin soul of the unborn child in her womb. Looking toward the river, Xiaobian noticed the monster in the water staring at the father and son with red eyes full of hatred. Chen Laogo paid no mind to this. He didn't even bother to stand up, simply looking at the monster and saying, "Stop looking. That child's soul does not belong to you. Focus on your cultivation. Do not stray into the demonic path. It will do you no good." It was unclear if the thing understood Laogo's words, but it lingered for a moment longer before slowly submerging into the river.
Chen Xiaobian only saw that monster sink to the bottom of the river, seeing its massive shadow, but as for what it ultimately was, he had no idea. Chen Laogan knew his son was curious again, took a drag of his cigarette, and told Chen Xiaobian that it was a creature that had been cultivating here for many years. "The fox spirit that I performed Chuma with knows it. If you can invite the fox immortal to perform Chuma, you could have the answer." Chen Xiaobian shook his head upon hearing this. Although he was curious about the matter, he felt that young people nowadays should follow modern trends. Chen Laogo didn't force him. Some things cannot be rushed and must depend on destiny. Seeing that the sky was about to brighten, the father and son returned to the village to find someone to call the police. Over 9 a.m. the next morning, the riverbank, usually quiet, was now filled with the voices of police officers, disturbing many residents living nearby. A group of police from the city arrived, taking photos and examining the corpse. Because it was morning, things were clearer. That corpse had rotten to the point where just looking at it was traumatizing. Most of the flesh on the body had been eaten by fish until only holes remained, and many parts were also severely decomposed.
News of the corpse appearing on the riverbank spread everywhere, attracting many curious villagers to come and watch. The riverbank, usually quiet, was now chaotic with people coming and going. At this moment, Chen Laogo brought Chen Xiaobian to the crowded spot and was talking to a middle-aged man who was the boss in charge here. Although he said he didn't want to get involved, Chen Laogo still said what needed to be said. "I asked around last night. This has to start with this woman's identity. She had a relationship with her superior, and I can't say more than that." Hearing this, the middle-aged man knew he had enough information to solve the case and didn't ask Chen Laogo any further. However, this man was quite interested in Chen Xiaobian. On the contrary, Chen Xiaobian didn't have a good impression of such people. He felt this guy was frivolous and unreliable. But unexpectedly, the man was very generous. He took out 500 yuan from his pocket and stuffed it into Chen Xiaobian's hand. "Here's the money and my contact information. If you ever come to the city in the future, just come find me." After giving the money, the man walked towards the riverbank. Perhaps fearing the Chen father and son might overthink it, he turned back and added, "This is the fee for retrieving the corpse. I will get reimbursed by the police bureau later." Chen Laogo knew this man quite well, so he didn't stand on ceremony and added a few words. If you were half as calm as your elder brother, that would be good. Then you wouldn't have ended up like this now." However, it was clear that this person did not listen to a word Chen Laogo said, muttering, "Being quiet and calm all day like that is boring to death. I actually like it this way." This man, Nanzung, then commanded the police to load the body onto the vehicle and quickly left the village. The case was solved very quickly. Chen Xiaobian only learned the details by listening to the villagers' gossip. It turned out that there was a fairly large village upstream of the river, and the corpse belonged to a female middle school student from that village. Some time ago, a new male teacher arrived at the school. Somehow, the two of them ended up sleeping together, often meeting secretly under a big tree by the mountain. Their affair lasted for a few months, until one day, the student told the teacher that her period was over a month late. This made the teacher freeze in shock. Presumably, from the beginning, he had no intention of marrying the girl, which was why they had been dating secretly like that. He lured the girl to the lakeside, using sweet words to make her let down her guard. But right at that moment, taking advantage of the high terrain and the strong current, knowing she couldn't swim, the teacher pushed the poor girl into the rushing river. He originally thought that falling into the river meant she wouldn't drift anywhere, and with the corpse eating fish down there, this matter would remain undiscovered forever. Who would have expected that the Chen Laogo father and son would intervene in this matter, not only retrieving the corpse, but also helping to solve the case? It is said that when this person was arrested, many bystanders watched and cursed. If it weren't for police protection, the public's fury might have beaten him to death. As a teacher of hundreds, yet committing such a heinous crime against nature and reason, the villagers' anger had reached its peak. Speaking of Chen Laogo's father and son duo, after dealing with that female floating corpse, they realized they hadn't slept all night and prepared to go home to rest. Chen Xiaobian was overjoyed at this moment. Earning 500 yuan meant he didn't work for free. On the way back, Chen Laogo discovered someone was following them. Chen Laogo was no ordinary person after all. He possessed keen senses. However, seeing his father remain silent, Chen Xiaobian didn't dare to act rashly against that person either. But since that person had targeted the father and son, they certainly wouldn't let go easily. Chapter 12. Leaving the Tomb. After resolving the issue of the floating corpse, the father and son went home and had a sound sleep. Recently, many things had happened in the village, so the father and son hadn't rested properly for a long time. But when Chen Xiaobian woke up, he found his father had risen early. It turned out that ever since they returned from the riverbank, they had been followed until now, so Chen Laogo couldn't sleep peacefully at all. Hearing his father speak, Chen Xiaobian also felt it was strange, so he followed the pointing hand and looked out the window. The Chen family home had an ancient architectural style, and the outer walls weren't very high, so a human head could be seen lurking outside.
Chen Xiaobian couldn't hold back anymore and went out to see who was there. Chen Laogo didn't stop him, but followed behind. Everyone knew that no monsters or demons dared to wreak havoc in broad daylight. It was definitely a normal human. The only question was why he kept loitering outside without daring to come in and meet face to face.
Chen Xiaobian opened the door, shouting loudly towards the outside. Who would have thought that person was also standing right at the door? So the moment it opened, they were face to face. At this moment, their faces were only about 10 centimeters apart. As soon as Chen Xiaobian saw the other's face, his soul scattered from his body. Who said this was a human? It was clearly a yaksha demon. Chen Xiaobian was startled and immediately retreated backward, his mouth cursing non-stop. Damn it, there really is a ghost! Chen Laogo seemed to have understood everything. That female ghost was also flustered at this moment, using her hair to cover half of her face, bowing respectfully towards Chen Laogo. Chen Xiaobian only then realized that the woman covering half her face looked quite delicate, so he felt a bit awkward. Chen Laogo asked her the reason. The woman sobbed. "Old Chen, I really have no other way, so I came here to beg for your help." The woman cried as she spoke, her appearance truly pitiful. "Old Chen, please help us. Everything in the past was our fault." Chen Laogo had been bowing his head in silence all this time, leaving Chen Xiaobian standing beside him confused as well, but he knew his father's personality, so he dared not speak up. The woman kept standing outside the door crying and begging, but Chen Laogo turned his back and walked into the house, leaving Chen Xiaobian with no choice but to follow him. Before entering the house, Chen Laogo did not turn his head back but said one sentence, "I already know what you want to ask. I will try my best." The woman immediately thanked Chen Laogo profusely.
Chen Laogo added another sentence. "I am not doing this for you people. I am only doing it out of respect for your late master. Go back now." After hearing Chen Laogo's words, the woman stood silently for a while before saying thank you. It seemed she knew she was at fault, which was why she had stood outside for so long without daring to knock. Chen Xiaobian, standing nearby, could no longer hold back. Seeing the woman had left and the door was closed, he hurriedly asked his father, "What exactly is going on?" Hearing Xiaobian's question, Laogo thought for a moment, recalling events from over 10 years ago. He raised his head, let out a long sigh, and began to recount the story. Over 10 years ago, when Chen Laogo brought Xiaobian to this Guanling village, they had no relatives, and Chen Laogo was injured. Fortunately, Master Zhao saved and treated him, allowing them to survive those dead-end days. Chen Laogo was very grateful to him, and they became good friends. At that time, Master Zhao's father had just passed away. To repay the life-saving grace, Chen Laogo found a burial spot with the best feng shui nearby to bury his father. Logically, since Chen Laogo was a newcomer, people wouldn't necessarily believe him if he offered help, but this Master Zhao trusted him implicitly. Because Master Zhao's family had a tradition of practicing medicine, and he himself was quite knowledgeable, he had long recognized that Chen Laogo was a capable man. Just like that, Master Zhao listened to Chen Laogo and buried his father in a plot of land facing south on the northern mountain range. True enough, after the burial, the Zhao family's business boomed. Before long, they built a large house, and the Zhao family became the first in the village to build a multi-story house. Just like that, a few years passed. Chu Laoye's health deteriorated day by day. He invited Chen Laogo to his home and begged him for a favor. "Laogo, I am not going to make it. I entrust the matter of my grave entirely to you. I do not ask for wealth or prosperity. I only pray for peace within the family." Chen Laogo performed a divination and knew that Chu Laoye's lifespan had come to an end. There was no other way, so he could only agree to his request without offering any fake comforting words. Chen Laogo happily agreed with old Chu, repeating his old saying, "If you trust me, I will do my best." At that very moment, the door to Chu Laoye's room suddenly opened. It turned out to be his daughter-in-law's uncle. Not knowing why he suddenly came to visit, Chen Laogo immediately stood up to offer his seat. Chu Laoye's daughter-in-law started speaking. "My uncle is a famous feng shui master in the city, very formidable. Later on, just let my uncle choose the burial site for father." After hearing Chu Laoye's daughter-in-law speak, Chen Laogo knew exactly what his true purpose for coming here was. This uncle immediately said, "You silly girl, what nonsense are you talking about?
One look and I know Master Chu will live to be 100 years old. This time, bad luck will turn into good." His gestures and words gave Chen Laogo the feeling that this was a Zhang-Hu swindler, but being an outsider and not understanding the internal affairs of the Chu family, it was not his place to say much. Chu Laoye himself was proficient in medicine and knew his own health very well. He understood that this person was just speaking comforting words, so he did not say much. However, illness cannot be overcome by a few comforting sentences, and lifespan cannot be reversed by mere words.
A few days later, Master Chu also passed away. Master Chu had always been very kind to everyone in the village, so when he died, everyone came to pay their respects. But Chen Laogo did not go. Instead, he went alone to the northern mountain range and observed all morning. Chen Laogo had already determined a burial spot for Master Chu, but at that moment, he suddenly noticed a group of people approaching from afar. Looking from a distance, they were funeral mourners, about a dozen people. While scattering spirit money on one side, they carried the coffin towards Chen Laogo. Chen Laogo looked closely and saw that the chief mourner was Master Chu's son, Chu Jiangguo, who was walking at the front, holding the funeral portrait. Chen Laogo was startled by the situation and quickly ran towards the funeral procession to stop them. "Jiangguo, what are you doing? The wake has only been going on for 1 day. The soul hasn't left the body yet. Why are you carrying him out here?" Before Jiangguo could reply, a man claiming to be a feng shui master stepped forward and said, "I have divined a hexagram. Today is an auspicious zodiac day for the funeral procession. It is good for moving the grave. Do you have any objections, sir?" Old Chen cursed silently. Since when did a funeral procession require choosing an auspicious zodiac day? The feng shui master continued to urge everyone to hurry up with the burial. The Chu family's daughter-in-law was not to be outdone either, constantly mocking from the side. "Laogo, what do you know? My uncle is a feng shui master in the city." Laogo, being mocked by the master and the daughter-in-law of the Chu family for a while, didn't know what to say. Since ancient times, holding a wake for 3 or 7 days was just a difference between the southern and northern customs. After the wake, the funeral procession is a natural occurrence. Where on earth does one need to pick a date for the procession? Chen Laogo had seen through the master as a swindling warlock, but Master Chu was already dead, and he himself was an outsider. Even if he spoke up, people wouldn't believe him. Chen Laogo thought to himself that as long as he was buried next to Master Chu's father, it wouldn't be a bad thing. After all, Master Chu only wished for peace for his descendants. However, unexpectedly, the group did not go up the mountain, but instead lowered the coffin right at the mountain side. This startled Chen Laogo again. He really couldn't hold back anymore and ran over once again to intervene. "Why are you burying him here? You cannot bury him here."
Although this place is not far from the mountainside, it is where the rocky veins flow through. Burying someone here is very unfavorable. Chen Laogo knew the Chu family's daughter-in-law wouldn't listen, so he said to Jiangguo, "This is the place where the white tiger breaks its back. How can you bury someone here? Are you crazy?" But Chu Jiangguo just hummed and hawed for a long time without saying a word. The uncle standing behind stepped forward to speak. "This place is bordered by mountains on 3 sides and leads to water on one side. It is a gravesite full of vitality. Mr. Chen has lived so long, yet you don't know this?" At this moment, the Chu family's daughter-in-law also spoke up, the two of them teaming up to mock Chen Laogo. "Chen Laogo, what exactly do you want to do? What does a barefoot doctor with no qualifications like you understand?" Chen Laogo had no mind to argue with them at this point, so he let Jiangguo decide where to bury, because before Chu Laoye died, he had always instructed his son to listen to Chen Laogo. However, Jiangguo was a man who feared his wife very much. At this moment, he had no mind of his own. Everything was decided by his wife, so he had long forgotten his father's dying wish. "Uncle Chen, I'm sorry. I have to listen to my wife's side." A single sentence from Jiangguo left Chen Laogo helpless. Those under the family head's orders began to proceed with the burial, while Chen Laogo could only stand there frozen, watching.
On that day, under the guidance of the feng shui master, the group dug a grave to bury Master Chu on the mountainside. Afterward, they dug another grave right next to it and went up the mountain to bring down Master Chu's father's coffin to bury it there, because according to that master, the place where Master Chu's father was buried had bad feng shui. They also knew that after more than 10 years, the body in the grave would surely have decomposed and would not be easy to move, so they set up a tripod hoist over the grave and used force to pull the coffin up.
But when the coffin lid was opened, they were all astonished, because everything they had thought was wrong. Master Chu's father had been buried for nearly 10 years, yet the corpse showed not a single sign of decomposition. Inside the coffin, there was a pool of pure water soaking the body, keeping it as ruddy as a living person. At this moment, everyone immediately began to buzz with discussion. They all said that the gravesite Chen Laogo had chosen was actually a place of wealth-generating feng shui, and destroying it like this was an act of great unfilial piety. Seeing this situation, the helpers dared not do any more work, fearing they would offend the deceased, so they all left. At this point, the self-proclaimed great feng shui master kept shouting sophistries. "What the hell do you country bumpkins know? How can a corpse soaking in water be a good thing? This is harming the Chu family. Get back to work immediately." But no matter what he said, those people still packed up their tools and left. At the gravesite, only the 3 members of the Chu family remained, and they had to carry the corpse themselves. However, for some unknown reason, as soon as the corpse left the pool of water, it immediately turned black and rapidly decomposed, making the task extremely difficult for the 2 moving it. Chen Laogo didn't want to watch anymore and turned to leave. By then, the corpse had been mishandled by them until it lost all form, and they simply covered it with a few straw mats before burying it. Originally wanting to repay Master Chu's kindness, but in this situation, Chen Laogo was completely helpless. He could only look at Master Chu's grave and sigh, fearing that this was the will of heaven. Just like that, under the direction of the fake master, 2 graves on the northern mountainside were completed. Although the villagers didn't see any immediate impact, compared to the old burial site, it still felt wrong. After the Chu family moved the graves, their lives remained stagnant day after day. The daughter-in-law had been married for over 10 years but still had no children, and the family business declined more and more. Not long after, during a business trip, Chu Zhengo was hit by a car. Although he kept his life, both of his legs were broken, and he could only lie in bed waiting for someone to take care of him.
The Chu family's daughter-in-law had a hard time conceiving, but when the child was finally born, it suffered from a strange illness that remained uncured despite seeking treatment everywhere. The misfortunes did not stop there. One time, while cooking, a gas cylinder exploded, severely burning half of the Chu family's daughter-in-law's face, leaving her appearance looking like neither human nor ghost. As for that swindling feng shui master, rumor has it he went to Beijing to do business and made quite a fortune deceiving others. Eventually, he was exposed, leading to total ruin and a miserable death.
The Chu family's daughter-in-law was out of options, so she came to beg Chen Laogo to save their family. Chen Xiaobian stood by indignantly. Such people didn't deserve their help. However, Laogo was a righteous man who had received a life-saving favor from old Chu. Since the descendants of the Chu family also showed remorse, how could he stand by and watch? "Xiaobian, don't say that. After all, I owe a debt of gratitude to Chu Laoye. If they have the intention to repent, heaven will also be merciful to them." Xiaobian asked his father again, "So how do we help them? Dig up the grave and bury it again?" Laogo said, "No need. Go pack up the gear. I just need what is called corpse-nourishing soil." Chapter 13. Corpse-nourishing soil. To help the Chu family improve their feng shui, near dusk, Chen Laogo took Xiaobian to a family living in the west of the village. Xiaobian knocked on the door twice, but no one opened it, so he told his father the owner must be out and advised him to go back. It seemed he was quite afraid of the person living here. Before Xiaobian could finish his sentence, the door suddenly burst open, making Xiaobian jump back in startlement. This person was 1.90 meters tall, with a solid build, covered in blood from head to toe, holding a blood-stained knife in his hand, looking like a fiend. When he saw the Chen father and son, he immediately broke into a smile. It seemed he greatly admired Chen Laogo, so he politely said 2 phrases. "Honored guests, honored guests." This butcher named Shi invited Laogo into the house with a very respectful demeanor, while Xiaobian beside them looked terrified. As soon as the 2 entered the house, they saw a large pig that had just had its throat slit lying in the garden courtyard, waiting to be drained of blood. It turned out Laogo came here to ask for pig blood. The butcher was quite quick-witted. Before the second sentence was even spoken, he agreed immediately. The Chen father and son borrowed a pushcart from the butcher's house to transport the bucket of pig blood they had just asked for back home. The butcher even respectfully said that if they had any business next time, just come over, and he will welcome them warmly. Xiaobian pushed the bucket of blood along with his father towards the northern mountain range. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief, no longer afraid. It turned out that Xiaobian himself didn't know why, but since childhood he had been very afraid of this butcher. Although he knew the man didn't treat him badly, he couldn't control the fear in his heart. According to Chen Laogo's explanation,
This was due to Chen Xiaobian's constitution. It was normal to feel fear when seeing someone with a strong killing aura. The father and son chatted as they walked toward the Chu family's grave. Chen Laogo continued, "That butcher isn't a bad person. Since you were young, you've received some meat from him several times." On the way, the father and son looked for a few bamboo tubes to prepare for changing the feng shui of the Chu family. Chen Laogo started a fire and continuously heated a piece of iron. As he prepared, he told Chen Xiaobian, "Try to learn this. This is a wasteland, not suitable for burying people. Now I will turn it into a corpse-nourishing land." Chen Laogo heated the iron piece and inserted it into the bamboo tube. White smoke billowed out, and soon the bamboo tube was pierced through. Chen Laogo instructed Chen Xiaobian to plant these bamboo tubes around Master Chu's grave according to the 6 yi positions, taking this place as the center, and drive all those bamboo tubes down. Chen Xiaobian worked very conscientiously. He took a stone and hammered the bamboo tubes hard into the ground.
Before long, all the bamboo tubes were inserted into their correct positions. At this moment, pig blood obtained from the butcher's house was used to pour into those bamboo tubes. Chen Xiaobian followed his old father's instructions, pouring the pig blood directly into the vertical bamboo tubes, not understanding why this had to be done. Chen Laogo sat on a stone, smoking, while explaining to Chen Xiaobian the technique of using fresh blood to nourish the corpse. This was indeed the method of using fresh blood to nourish the corpse, utilizing the fresh blood of animals to create something called corpse-nourishing soil. The burial place of Chu Laoye was the intersection between high mountains and flat land, a feng shui configuration called white tiger breaking its back, a piece of land with extremely weak vitality. Therefore, Chen Laogo used a large amount of pig blood poured into the ground to help elevate the vitality of this land and improve its feng shui. Hearing Chen Laogo talk about using fresh blood to nourish the corpse, Chen Xiaobian was a bit confused, because Chen Laogo had often spoken about the terrors he faced once when he went underground and encountered a tomb with a corpse soaked in blood. Chen Laogo took 2 more drags of his cigarette, explaining to Chen Xiaobian about this corpse-nourishing soil. Since Chu Laoye's corpse had already decomposed, it could not become a jiangxi. On the other hand, the energy of the fresh blood would restore the land's vitality, helping the descendants avoid suffering due to feng shui influences. Chen Laogo further told Chen Xiaobian that the gravesite he had previously chosen for Old Chu was actually a standard piece of corpse-nourishing soil. Corpse-nourishing soil is an extremely dangerous place for tomb raiders, but for the tomb owner, it is a good thing. Thus, when the earth meets blood, the people will prosper. That year, after Chen Laogo finished selecting the gravesite, he discovered there was another ancient tomb underneath, so he went down alone to check. Chen Xiaobian sat quietly nearby, listening to his father recount the events of that year. That year, wishing to find a suitable gravesite for Old Chu, Chen Laogo had observed this mountainside for a very long time, finally finding a wealth-generating feng shui spot. He took the guandin suo, wrapped it around the bamboo tubes, and inserted them into the ground. After plunging down about 10 meters, he detected something. Chen Laogo pulled out the iron coffin nail and discovered red stains on it. He was extremely surprised. Could there be something else down there? Driven by curiosity, Chen Laogo immediately dug deeper that very night to take a look. After digging for more than half a watch, he broke through to the tomb chamber. Since his goal was not grave robbing, he stuck the shovel horizontally and stood on it to observe carefully. Chen Laogo aimed for the right spot and looked down. Sure enough, there was a coffin below. Chen Laogo was already certain this was a grave, but seeing something strange about the coffin, he decided to go down and pry the lid open to check. Chen Laogo used the guanding suo, considered his magical treasure, to open this coffin. Chen Laogo aimed precisely at the coffin's position, threw it once, and the guanding suo embedded firmly inside. The guanding suo was crafted from coffin nails accumulated over many years. The iron nail heads were sharp and sturdy. Since this coffin was very old and no longer solid, the lid could be easily pried open. Fearing one nail wouldn't be enough, Chen Laogo successively dropped 4 iron coffin nails to stick firmly into the coffin. He stood firmly on the shovel and used both hands to pull hard on all 4 sides to lift the lid. After a moment, the coffin lid gave a loud crack and was pulled open. With the coffin lid removed, everything was exposed before old Chen's eyes, leaving him astonished. The corpse inside the coffin had been buried for who knows how many centuries, yet the body had not decomposed at all.
Instead, it was soaked in a pool of red blood, and the corpse itself had turned into a blood corpse. Because the coffin lid was opened, disturbing the blood corpse, it suddenly opened its eyes wide, glaring at Chen Laogo, its mouth gaping open. While Chen Laogo was frozen in shock, the blood corpse scrambled up and crawled out. Finally, it stood up. Because the hole he dug was a bit small, he couldn't see the entire blood corpse. At this moment, the blood corpse stood fully upright, just standing there staring up at Chen Laogo overhead. Chen Laogo hadn't intended to come down here. It was just out of curiosity. He naturally didn't want to get into a conflict with the blood corpse, so with trembling hands he retrieved the 4 iron nails.
At this moment, the blood corpse aimed straight at Chen Laogo, waiting for a chance to attack. Naturally, Laogo wouldn't give it such an opportunity. He took out an iron coffin nail rope that was over 100 years old and hurled it forcefully at the creature. Not knowing the power of the iron coffin nail rope and seeing Chen Laogo attack, the blood corpse kept moving its body. Just as it prepared to strike, it was wrapped up by the rope. Laogo waved his hand. This iron coffin nail rope had been exposed to the sun for many years and soaked in black dog blood. Now, as it coiled around the blood corpse, it caused red aura to rise from the creature. The blood corpse was tightly constricted by the rope and couldn't struggle, though it didn't seem to pose a lethal threat to it. At this point, the blood corpse stood frozen in place, emitting growls. Laogo didn't think twice. He abandoned the iron coffin nail rope and immediately climbed up to the ground surface. However, he knew that sooner or later trouble would happen. Fortunately, the blood corpse couldn't escape in the short term. Laogo took this opportunity to cut down many willow branches to seal the pit. By then, the blood corpse had managed to break free from the rope, but since willow wood suppresses ghosts, it still couldn't get out. It opened its mouth wide and howled in fury. Laogo used a large amount of willow wood to blockade the pit and placed the blue stone with the sealing talisman on top of it. He then piled earth over the surface, trapping the blood corpse tightly underground, making it impossible for it to escape.
Chen Laogo buried that blood corpse tightly right that night. Only then did he dare to bury Chu Laoye's father on top. Although it is said that a grave upon a grave is taboo, that corpse had no soul left, so there was no problem. As they spoke, Chen Xiaobian had also finished pouring pig blood into the bamboo tube. Chen Laogo stood up and shook off the sand, while Chen Xiaobian packed up the gear to go home. Since Chu Laoye's dying wish was to pray for his descendants' peace, Chen Laogo didn't need to worry. It was already the middle of the night, and the villagers were sound asleep. In this desolate mountain area, the Chen Laogo father and son prepared to pack up and go down the mountain. On the way back, Laogo noticed that his son had been acting very strangely since hearing the story about the blood corpse grave. Sure enough, as expected, tonight Xiaobian agreed to do this because he wanted Laogo to take him down to see the blood corpse grave. Actually, Laogo told the story to Xiaobian tonight because he wanted his son to have some training, as Xiaobian was no longer a child. Seeing his father agree, Xiaobian was so happy he wanted to jump for joy. Chapter 14. Battling the Blood Corpse. On the second night after changing the feng shui for the Chu family, Chen Laogo, following the agreement, led Chen Xiaobian here to see the blood corpse grave. However, Xiaobian had been digging for over 2 shishen, 4 hours, and still hadn't seen the blue stone his father used to seal it back then. Xiaobian's digging technique was far inferior to his father's back then. At this moment, Xiaobian was inside the small hole, sweating profusely. Xiaobian dug while doubting. Is it true that back in the day, father dug this hole in less than 1 shishen? While feeling frustrated, suddenly the shovel hit something very hard, making a clanging sound. Xiaobian dug the earth away there, and sure enough, there was a sealing blue stone, just as his father had said.
Chen Xiaobian immediately reported back to his father. At this moment, Chen Laogo told him to stop digging and just pick up the stone. Xiaobian, who only wanted to dig at something valuable, saw Laogo holding the stone and assumed it was very precious. Seeing his son nagging in his ear, Laogo said nothing. He just took the stone to the mouth of the cave. Suddenly, Laogo let go, causing the stone to fall straight down into the cave. This made Xiaobian heartbroken to the extreme. It wasn't easy for him to dig up a valuable treasure, so why was it thrown down again? In reality, Laogo had a plan. The place where the stone was dug up was not far from the ancient tomb. In the middle, there were a few willow trees blocking the way, but they had rotted away after many years.
Throwing the stone down would quickly reveal the location of the tomb chamber. Once the entrance was cleared, a thick, foul smell of yin aura rose from below. Lao Go pushed Xiaobian back, telling him not to inhale the yin aura coming from the tomb. After 10 minutes or so, the stench dissipated a bit, and the father and son approached to observe. Lao Go threw a phosphorus tube down, lighting up the area below. This light could last for half an hour. This time, Lao Go was in no hurry. He took out a bamboo tube from his sleeve, opened the lid, and poured some fresh blood inside. This fresh blood was from a rooster. As soon as it was poured down, its fishy smell immediately spread everywhere. This time, Xiaobian understood. Lao Go was using fresh blood to lure that blood corpse out of the tomb, because inside the tomb was its territory, making it very difficult to deal with. Sure enough, just after pouring it, the blood corpse smelled the scent and appeared with a disgusting appearance.
Its speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it had crawled up following Chen Xiaobian's digging path. Chen Lao Go took Xiaobian about 10 meters away from the hole to observe from a distance, carefully warning him that the blood on the corpse was poisonous and touching it would be bad news. Seeing the blood corpse with his own eyes, Xiaobian was a bit scared. His desire to dig for treasures was immediately shaken. At this moment, the blood corpse had climbed up, ceaselessly licking the fresh blood at the mouth of the hole, then turned its head to look at the Chen father and son. The blood corpse swayed its body, moving towards Chen Lao Go, preparing to pounce and bite. Xiaobian saw his father standing there calmly with arms crossed, feeling a bit calmer himself, but the blood corpse rushed over as fast as the wind. In a blink, the blood corpse had charged straight over. The stench on its body overwhelmed the noses of the father and son. For the first time, Xiaobian saw such a terrifying scene and was about to reach his limit. However, strangely, Chen Lao Go remained calm. Xiaobian couldn't think of anything. He thought to himself that if they couldn't dodge, he would push his father aside and deal with the corpse himself. When the blood corpse was about 1 meter away from the father and son, suddenly a shadow rushed out to attack it, knocking the blood corpse far away. This black shadow had very fierce strength. Only then could Xiaobian see clearly that it turned out to be the corpse-eating dog from before. The blood corpse was knocked back about 7-8 meters and found itself surrounded by a pack of ferocious wild dogs. The corpse-eating dog led the pack of black dogs to charge straight up, knocking the blood corpse to the ground. Just as Chen Lao Go said, although that blood corpse was very fierce, black dogs were its natural nemesis. Being torn apart by a pack of black dogs, the blood corpse had no way to fight back, only able to lie there and be torn into pieces by the dogs. Seeing the blood corpse subdued, Chen Lao Go turned his head to tell Xiaobian about the Xian Erjia Shen lineage. It wasn't that the father and son couldn't deal with it, it was just unnecessary to take such risks. This is the characteristic of the Xian Jia Shen mountain walkers. We of the immortal family are not like those grave robbers who steal. Whenever they go in a group, but we act alone. However, wherever we go, we have the immortal family's protection. Chen Lao Go mentioned that the immortal family, Xian Jia, is a sect established before the Qing dynasty. Not acting in groups like grave robbers, the people of Xian Erjia Shen are very few and only act independently, utilizing animals with spiritual nature to find treasures. Since the sect was founded, more than a dozen generations have passed, yet the sect remains small because it does not interact with other sects. It does not specialize in a single trade either. Instead, it takes saving the world as its guiding principle, concerning itself with whatever matters it encounters. The most famous figure in the sect is Luo Sheng, a character of exceptional wisdom and courage, who once personally led the 9 Paths immortal families and was recognized throughout the country's great marshes and famous mountains. He sought out countless treasures, and there were no outsiders who did not praise him. However, later on, during an operation, his whereabouts became unknown.
The animals that follow the immortal family all possess fighting instincts and are all tamed by Lo Sheng. Lo Sheng is a person with magical power even stronger than the 9 Paths immortal family. Not everyone can achieve that. In his entire life, Chen Lao Go could only lead the 4 Paths immortal family, and having aged over the years, he no longer has the strength to lead them. Lao Go narrated this to Chen Xiaobian while watching the pack of dogs tear apart the blood corpse, ensuring it could no longer harm anyone. The corpse-eating dog held the blood corpse's heart in its mouth, looking at Lao Go as if claiming its trophy. Feeling reassured, Lao Go turned to Xiaobian and said they could now descend. The Chen father and son relied on the Guanding Sua to climb down along the tunnel. Since the blood corpse had been destroyed, the tomb was no longer dangerous, making them feel more at ease. Lao Go had observed the tomb beforehand and noted there were not many burial objects. Today, he was finally bringing Xiaobian to see the tomb he had opened over a decade ago. The hard red layer of blood inside this coffin was formed by the condensation of fresh blood over a long period. With his skilled hands, Chen Laogo courageously sat down to search for treasures inside the coffin. He discovered 2 items, a piece of precious jade thoroughly soaked in fresh red blood, and a dagger that remained intact without any rot. As Laogo unsheathed the dagger, a streak of light suddenly flashed across the tomb. The more he drew the dagger, the more blinding the light became, causing Xiaobian to step back in fear. Xiaobian was terrified, but Laogo felt he had found a treasure, thinking this trip was not in vain, and put the dagger away. Just then, Xiaobian suddenly sensed a woman's voice behind them. The dagger's killing aura might have disturbed something. The father and son immediately turned around. At this moment, Laogo realized that inside the tomb, Xiaobian's yin-yang eyes were effective. The boy saw the ghost of a woman on a jar in the corner. The female ghost was dressed in ancient costume and seemed trapped in the jar, keeping her head down and crying softly. She bore no malice and actually looked quite pitiful. According to Laogo, this was a concubine buried sacrificially. Due to her low status, she had suffocated to death in the jar, and her soul could not leave. Laogo instructed Xiaobian to light 3 incense sticks and then open the jar's lid to let her soul find salvation.
Chen Xiaobian always grumbled whenever the topic of business losses came up, and this time was no exception. All right, follow the incense smoke and go reincarnate quickly. Remember to repay this kindness, girl. This incense of ours is very expensive. As soon as the lid of the urn was opened, a stream of white smoke flew out. The white smoke followed the incense smoke, drifting out of the grave. Chen Laogo calculated for a moment. Seeing they had been down here for over 20 minutes, the phosphorus light was about to go out, and it seemed there was nothing left. He called Chen Xiaobian to prepare to leave. However, Chen Xiaobian was a bit reluctant. "Father, there is an object here. Can I take it back to give to Chun-Ni?" It turned out, Chen Xiaobian saw a jade bracelet in the pile of the girl's bones and wanted to take it back as a gift for Chun-Ni. But a single sentence from Chen Laogo made Chen Xiaobian almost jump to the sky. For women nowadays, jade bracelets are very valuable, especially ancient ones. That thing is worth over 100,000 yuan. If you can bear to give it away, then go ahead. Just like that, the Chen father and son relied on the Guanding Saw to climb out of the ancient tomb. At this moment, Chen Xiaobian looked at the jade bracelet with a heavy heart, while Chen Laogo watched the corpse-eating dog lead the pack away into the night. By now, the dogs had completely devoured the blood corpse. Not even bone fragments remained.
Chen Laogo and Chen Xiaobian clasped their hands to thank the corpse-eating dog. Xiaobian knew it was his benefactor since childhood, so he was very polite and respectful towards it. The corpse-eating dog seemed to recognize Xiaobian, looking at him for a long time, then turned its back and barked a few times, as if giving an order. Following that, it once again led the pack of wild dogs into the deep forest. Chen Laogo saw Xiaobian staring blankly after the pack of dogs and thought he was thinking about his background, so he told him to hurry back home. But when Xiaobian opened his mouth, he almost made Laogo cough up blood. "Wow, if I give Chun-Ni this jade bracelet now, but she refuses to marry me, wouldn't I suffer a loss?" Chen Laogo didn't want to hear his son rambling anymore, so he pulled out a dagger. The dazzling light radiating from the dagger gave Xiaobian a scare. Seeing his son fall silent, Laogo continued speaking about the 2 treasures. The real treasure obtained today was this dagger. Laogo told Xiaobian a lot about the benefits of this dagger. This dagger possessed a very strong killing aura. It had become a spirit knife. Once subdued, ghosts would dare not approach, and it could even sense imminent danger. Laogo also recounted that in the past he had spent a lot of effort to subdue a powerful spirit artifact. Chapter 15. The Ominous Spirit Blade. After Chen Laogo took Xiaobian down into the blood corpse grave and obtained a few things, the 2 of them covered up the cave entrance and prepared to descend the mountain. While admiring the blade in his hand, Laogo explained to Xiaobian that this blade was an ominous object possessing a spirit.
Ancient people crafting weapons was not like mass production nowadays. It involved exhausting effort for many years to create one, a process akin to a mystical ritual. Skilled weaponsmiths would use human blood to quench the blade. This caused the newly created weapon to be filled with ominous energy, striking fear into people. Others would use sacrificial objects for their weapons to allow the weapon to generate spiritual power.
Just as Chen Lao Go drew this blade, light radiated from it, covering his entire body and giving Chen Xiaobian, who was standing nearby, a good scare. Upon analysis, it seemed that when this blade was crafted, it was already created as a murderous weapon. Later, it likely killed quite a few people, giving birth to a blade spirit, which made Chen Xiaobian, with his yin constitution, extremely terrified. Previously, Chen Lao Go also possessed an ominous weapon, which was not easily subdued. Hearing his father mention this, Chen Xiaobian felt intrigued by the blade and immediately insisted that Chen Lao Go tell him the story of how he subdued that ominous weapon. Roughly 10 years ago, when Chen Xiaobian was still small, on a dark night, Old Chen and the soul-hooking bird were hunting a gray monster on a barren mountain. The creature was very cunning. After being chased to this desolate mountain, it repeatedly hid inside a large rock and refused to come out. The soul-hooking bird lost its patience, flapped its wings, and flew down to the rock to guard against the gray monster. However, this was only a passive measure, and for a moment there was no solution. But right at that moment, the Guanding sword shot out like an arrow, pinning the monster's body. It turned out that Chen Lao Go had been aiming and waiting for this opportunity all along. The Guanding sword is yin by nature and has exorcistic properties, so the monster was destroyed as a result. Chen Lao Go said to the soul-hooking bird, "Old rules, the scarlet child pill is mine, the divine wax tail and the corpse are yours." Chen Lao Go took the pair of scarlet child pills from the monster and put them in his pocket, while the soul-hooking bird swallowed the monster's entire body in one gulp.
Just as he was about to leave, Chen Lao Go suddenly heard the owl fly midway and cry out, immediately flying back to Chen Lao Go, then flapping its wings to fly to another side. Chen Lao Go knew for sure that the soul-hooking bird had discovered something again, so he hurriedly chased after the direction the soul-hooking bird was flying. The soul-hooking bird perched on a tree branch, and Chen Lao Go also caught up, but after seeing clearly what was in front of him, he froze. On the empty ground behind the forest, there was a man about 30 years old, appearing as if he wanted to commit suicide. At that moment, this person was holding a gleaming sharp blade pointed at his throat, but Chen Lao Go quickly discovered that the person had lifeless eyes. Obviously, his mind was being controlled. Chen Lao Go was afraid it would be too late. Feeling anxious in his heart, his right hand immediately lashed out the Guanding suo, which happened to hit the short blade the man was holding, making a clang sound. That short blade, after being hit, flew out a few meters and fell to the ground with a thud. As soon as the blade left his hand, the man regained his senses, but at this moment he discovered he was covered in knife wounds. Whether from pain or fear, his whole body was covered in sweat. At this time, Chen Lao Go stepped forward and patted the young man's shoulder, asking about the situation, but it seemed he had not yet recovered his spirit. He stammered and could not speak for a long time, only coming to his senses after a while, but those wounds made him groan a lot. Chen Lao Go hurriedly used the gauze he brought along to bandage the man's wounds. At this moment, the man remembered everything and recounted it to Chen Lao Go. Basically, everything was caused by that blade. After hearing the story about that short blade, Chen Lao Go turned back to look at it, and indeed discovered that this ancient blade was an ominous object carrying killing aura. Seeing that Chen Lao Go was no ordinary person, the young man talked incessantly, telling him everything. It turned out this guy's name was Wang Jun. About 10 days ago, he rode his motorcycle from the town to run some errands when he suddenly saw Lao Nu, a villager, sitting on a rock by the roadside waiting for the bus to go to the city. Wang Jun, being an enthusiastic person who also loved to gossip, asked Lao Nu what he was going to the city for. It turned out Lao Nu wanted to sell a saber he was holding, which he had dug up in his backyard earlier, wondering if it would fetch a good price. Upon hearing that Lao Nu wanted to sell the saber, Wang Jun immediately got excited because he really liked things like weapons, sabers, and guns. So as soon as he heard it, he stopped his bike to take a look. As soon as Lao Nu unwrapped the red cloth covering the saber, Wang Jun couldn't stop staring at it. He only knew it was an ancient saber. Although it was blackened, it was still very sharp, evoking a sense of fear. At this moment, Wang Jun was moved and insisted that Lao Nu sell him that saber. Lao Nu still wanted to sell it for money, but how could he ask for money from an acquaintance? After hesitating for a long time, he prepared to give the saber to Wang Jun as a gift. The two of them pushed and pulled for a while in the middle of the road, and finally Wang Jun managed to stuff a $100 bill into Lao Nu's hand, buying that ancient saber. It was supposed to be a good thing, but at this moment Lao Nu turned back and warned Wang Jun to be careful with this saber, as it seemed to have an evil nature. Lao Nu was an elderly man. When he first dug up this saber, the children and women in the house all felt afraid. He was certain that this saber had an evil nature, and since they were fellow villagers, he still reminded Wang Jun. However, at this time, Wang Jun felt that Lao Nu regretted selling the saber to him, so he was just saying random things. Therefore, he didn't listen to Lao Nu's advice. After Wang Jun said goodbye to Wang Jun, he felt very happy in his heart, and thinking about the saber made him even happier. Let alone ghosts or gods, even if that saber had a bloody smell, he would still treat it as a treasure.
Feeling happy in his heart, his riding speed increased. At this moment, the blade was tucked into the back of his waistband. That day, an incident occurred. While turning a corner due to slippery sand and rocks on the road combined with his high speed, he momentarily lost control of the motorbike and fell, his whole body thrown off the vehicle. When Wang Jun sat up, he discovered that his injuries were not severe, but not light either. He looked around and suddenly froze. That black blade had fallen out at some point, and Wang Jun's blood was smeared on it. However, he didn't know if his eyes were playing tricks on him, but the blood stain on the blade naturally disappeared, as if the blade had sucked the blood in. After absorbing it, the blade seemed to shine even brighter. But at this moment, Wang Jun didn't pay much attention. He picked up the blade, wrapped it tightly, and tied it to the back of the bike. Thinking back, he felt a bit scared. If it had stabbed into his body earlier, who knows how dangerous it would have been. After that, he didn't dare to ride fast anymore and went to find a nearby medical station to treat his wounds. Just as he entered the house and met his wife, Wang Jun excitedly showed off the precious blade, forgetting all about the injuries on his own body. He took the blade out to show his wife, but for some unknown reason, his wife stumbled and fell forward. Out of natural reflex, Wang Jun used his hand to catch his wife, and at that moment, her hand was slashed by that sharp blade edge, creating a deep cut that bled profusely.
This wight had quite a temper. She immediately flew into a rage, screaming that the blade must be thrown away and could not be kept in the house. At this moment, the blade-stained blade looked even more terrifying. The strange thing was, not a single drop of blood on it fell to the ground. All the blood was absorbed into the blade. This time, both Wang Jun and his wife saw it with their own eyes. Now Wang Jun understood. It turned out this blade really had a cursed nature. Seeing the blade drink human blood and emitted demonic aura, he truly didn't dare keep it in the house anymore. However, Wang Jun liked this blade very much, and having spent 100 yuan to buy it, he really couldn't bear to throw it away, so he took it and buried it under a big rock in front of the village. A few days later, he had business to attend to at night. Wang Jun thought that since he wasn't driving this time, there wouldn't be any danger, so he dug up the blade to carry with him. But walking in such a desolate and remote forest, he constantly felt like something was following behind him, and he felt very afraid. After Wang Jun drew the blade and held it in his hand, that feeling of fear immediately vanished. Wang Jun secretly rejoiced, so the 100 yuan wasn't wasted after all. This blade was strange and possessed a lot of killing aura. It could indeed ward off evil. Just as he thought this, Wang Jun had a strange sensation.
He almost felt the will of the blade. At that moment, Wang Jun's mind only thought that this blade wanted to drink blood, and he had to go satisfy its demand. After that, Wang Jun didn't remember what happened anymore until he was saved by Chen Lao Go. Only when he woke up did he discover his whole body was covered in wounds. Hearing this, Chen Lao Go already had a plan in his heart. He was very interested in this blade, so he immediately went over to examine it. Chen Lao Go observed for a long time before picking up the blade. Sure enough, as soon as he held it, overflowing cold energy tried to control him. Chen Lao Go felt the blade become abnormally heavy, and its killing aura constantly suppressed his mind. Only then did he understand in his heart that this was indeed a treasure. But who was Chen Lao Go? Naturally, he wouldn't be easily controlled by this ominous weapon. He simply flipped his hand and stabbed his own thigh, giving Wang Jun a fright. Chen Lao Go stabbed the blade into his thigh, fresh blood gushing out, and in an instant the blade's body was dyed red. Chen Lao Go was ruthless enough. Not only did he stab the blade into his thigh, but he also twisted it a full circle. At this moment, fresh blood flowed out ceaselessly, soaking his thigh in an instant. It seemed the blade had drunk its fill of blood. Wang Jun thought Chen Lao Go was also suppressed by the blade, so he summoned his courage to step forward and call him to wake up.
Observing closely, although the blade was stabbed into Chen Lao Gu's thigh, his complexion remained rosy, and he was even smiling and talking, not looking controlled at all. To Chen Lao Gu, if this thing wanted to drink, then let it drink. One must be more ruthless than it to make it submit. Wang Jun dared not use this blade anymore, and immediately gifted it to Chen Lao Gu. Since then, the blade belonged to Chen Lao Gu, and it indeed helped him escape many calamities. After Chen Lao Gu finished telling the story to Chen Xiaobian, he mentioned a few things from Xiaobian's childhood. It turned out that when Xiaobian was young, his health was frail. He often claimed to see black shadows beside him, and was frequently scared into crying loudly. At that time, Chen Lao Gu would place the blade at the head of the bed. This blade possessed intense killing aura, so demons and ghosts dared not approach. As long as this blade was stuck at the head of the bed, Xiaobian would sleep soundly until morning. However, Xiaobian's thoughts differed from Chen Lao Gu's. "Dad, are you sure I was sleeping back then, and not just fainting from the blade's killing aura?" Recalling that he always had a ferocious blade above his head as a child, Xiaobian now felt even more apprehensive.
unable to understand how he managed to grow up to this size. "By the way, Dad, that blade is so rare. Are you really giving it to me? Do I have to stab it into my thigh like you did? If so, then never mind." Chen Lagu replied, "There is no need to do that. When we get back, I will perform the spirit invocation ritual for you." Chapter 16. The Harm of Charms and Curses, Part 1. After the Chen father and son finished dealing with the blood corpse grave, they were returning from the northern mountain. At this moment, after rejoicing over obtaining the treasure, Chen Xiaobian started complaining again, and rightly so. Ever since they helped the Chu family with the corpse-nourishing soil, they hadn't had a good sleep for 2 days. Chen Laogo was helpless with this child. He could only ceaselessly lecture him. "Making money isn't easy. When I was young, sometimes I didn't sleep for over 10 days straight." While the father and son were talking, suddenly a mournful sound of an owl came from the forest behind them. The two turned their heads. It was the soul-hooking bird perching on a branch, hooting as if something was happening. Sure enough, looking in that direction, they discovered a shadowy figure doing something in the distant forest. The night owl's cry startled the person, causing him to panic and look out of the forest. The Chen father and son also saw someone doing something at a grave. As soon as that person spotted them, he was terrified and scrambled to run away immediately. Seeing this, the father and son guessed he wasn't up to any good. Chen Xiaobian wanted to chase after him. However, Chen Laogo stopped Xiaobian without any haste. "It's pitch black. How do you intend to chase him? Don't worry, he can't escape." He simply looked up and said to the soul-hooking bird, "Chase after him." The soul-hooking bird obeyed Chen Laogo, flapped its wings, and vanished into the sky. In the dark, misty night, the soul-hooking bird's eyes glowed, closely tracking the person who had just fled the forest. Seeing the soul-hooking bird fly off, the father and son approached the grave. At first glance, both were astonished. The corpse had been dragged out of the grave and was lying on the ground. It was unclear what the person's purpose was. This was the corpse of a village woman who died from drinking pesticide. The body hadn't decomposed yet. Her head was tilted to one side, and aligned with it was a white candle. The corpse's chin seemed to have been burned. Chen Xiaobian didn't understand anything, but Chen Laogo recognized it immediately at a glance. Someone was harvesting corpse fa from this body.
According to Chen Laogu's analysis, the person just now must have been a shaman from Miaojiang, using this specially crafted candle to extract corpse fat. He was certainly practicing Vupu sorcery. It seems he understood the woman's death very well, knowing that someone who died a sudden, unnatural death would harbor heavy resentful energy, which would make the corpse fat even more potent. Miaojiang sorcery is divided into two factions. One uses herbs to cure diseases and save people, while the other uses corpse fat naturally for harming people. Hearing that the Miaojiang shaman was harming people, Chen Xiaobian immediately flew into a rage, but Chen Laogu told him not to be hasty and to stay calm. If that man is harming people, he will definitely end up confronting them. Chen Laogu knew clearly in his heart that if the man did any evil, people from 10 miles around would eventually come to find Chen Laogu, so they were bound to cross paths sooner or later. After the father and son reburied the corpse, the sun had risen from the east. By the time they returned to the village, it was fully bright. On the way, Chen Xiaobian asked his father, "Didn't you say those shamans are only in the south of Miaojiang? Why has one run over to our place now?"
As they approached the alley in front of their home, they saw two people standing at the door from afar, seemingly waiting for them. The father and son took a look and realized it was Da Gong and a stranger. It appeared they had come to find Chen Laogo. While Da Gong was speaking, the man beside him kept staring at Chen Laogo and only reacted after a while. He rushed straight up to Chen Laogo, muttering about an ancient black blade, as if trying to remind him of something. Chen Laogo remembered now. This was the man he had saved in the forest when his mind was controlled by that ferocious blade. Seeing the man's urgent demeanor, Chen Laogo guessed he must have encountered some evil spirit. He didn't refuse and immediately followed the man, named Wang Jun, to his home. At this moment, it seemed Chen Xiaobian's longing for a good sleep would not be fulfilled. Wang Jun's house was about 20 miles from Guanling village. By the time they arrived, it was already noon, and Chen Laogo quickly went to check on Wang Jun's son. Chen Laogo observed the child very meticulously and immediately frowned. The child was extremely weak, and traces of death aura had appeared on his face. This situation made Chen Laogo anxious. Usually when someone is possessed or affected by objects carrying yin aura, their health doesn't deteriorate this rapidly. Although the child was still breathing, he gave off the feeling of a dead person. Chen Laogo didn't dare to jump to conclusions and examined the child's entire body. Finally, when he looked at the boy's tongue, Chen Laogo became even more worried. Strange purple-blue blood spots had appeared on the boy's tongue.
Thanks to that characteristic, Chen Laogo realized that the boy had been poisoned by Wu Gu, Wu Kol. Knowing that people from the Central Plains did not understand Wu Gu arts, he briefly explained to them that this type of Gu poison is prevalent in Miaojiang and rarely enters the Central Plains. Wu Gu is divided into Wu arts, sorcery, and Gu arts, venom. Gu arts involve raising poisonous insects to harm people, mostly requiring physical contact with the body to take effect. According to Laogo's analysis, the child had been cursed by an evil shaman. If they didn't find the caster, there would be big trouble. This shaman didn't need to get close to the victim. They used an effigy to cast the curse. Saying this, Laogo turned to ask Wang Jun and his wife if they had offended anyone recently to be harmed like this.
However, Wang Jun's family were just ordinary farmers. After thinking for a long time, they couldn't recall offending anyone. Hearing nothing useful from the couple, Lao Go recalled the person he met last night. Surely it was related to that guy. Lao Go told Dagong and Xiaobian to follow the soul-hooking bird tonight to catch that shaman. Hearing about catching a bad guy, Dagong immediately got excited, but Xiaobian had a doubt. Why do we have to act at night? A single sentence from Lao Go woke Xiaobian up. Are you stupid? Have you ever seen a soul-hooking bird active during the day? Thinking about it, it was true. Soul-hooking birds never appear during the day, only at night. Lao Go told the two young men to rest while he and Wang Jun's couple prepared the necessary tools. Lao Go asked for some rather strange things, but fortunately they were available in the village and didn't take much effort to find. An hour later, half a bag of glutinous rice, a bowl of fresh blood from a 3-year-old rooster, and a branch of wormwood with leaves intact were prepared. Lao Go mixed the glutinous rice with fresh blood and applied it all over the boy's body. Before long, the rice turned black, darker and darker, emitting a black gas that smelled like a corpse. After changing the rice once more, the child's complexion became rosy again, and he slowly woke up. However, Lao Go could see that the aura of death, to he, still lingered on the child. It had to be dealt with thoroughly. Lao Go told the mother to boil the wormwood water, reducing 3 bowls to 1. Then he burned a talisman and mixed the ash into it for the boy to drink. 10 minutes after drinking, his stomach gurgled and pained in waves, feeling like he wanted to vomit. Immediately, the boy threw up a lot of thick, black substance looking like tar, with an extremely disgusting smell. After vomiting it all out, his health and spirit recovered, and he even cried out to his mother that he was very hungry.
Seeing his son recover, Wang Jun was moved to tears and immediately took out 10,000 yuan to give to Old Dog as a thank you gift. Old Dog naturally refused the money, saying that the knife he received over 10 years ago was all ready to gift. If that brat Xiaobian found out about this, he would probably whine and cry all night long. At this moment, Xiaobian and Dagong were busy with something else. They had been chasing after the soul-hooking bird for half an hour. The soul-hooking bird flew in the sky, and although it was flying at a very slow speed, the two young men running on the ground still had to struggle to keep up with it. Luckily, after running a bit further, the soul-hooking bird landed on the roof of a house. From the bird's eyes, it could be deduced that this was certainly the house of the shaman who stole the corpse fat last night. The two assessed the situation, certain this was the place. Dagong hurriedly rolled up his sleeves, ready to rush in and catch the person. However, he was carefully stopped by Chen Xiaobian, this Miaojiang sorcerer wearing local attire. At this moment, he was using thatch grass to tie a straw effigy, mumbling some incomprehensible words, as if deploying a cursing technique. At that moment, that smug expression suddenly felt pain all over the body, as if he himself had been possessed. Struck by such insidious waves of pain, all the strength in the old man's body seemed to be drained away. His whole body could only tremble. The man hunched over, his body both cold and painful, unable to even stand up. Suddenly, the room door opened. Knowing there was no more danger, Dagong and Chen Xiaobian rushed in. Chen Xiaobian said smugly, "Is it very uncomfortable? Don't you know that when Wugong's sorcery is neutralized, it will backlash against the caster?" Seeing the two newcomers looking fierce, the shaman immediately stood up, ready to fight. Chen Xiaobian intended to strike, but remembering his father's words that Miaojiang sorcerers have many poisonous insects, he waved his hand and told Dagong to charge. At this moment, Dagong was filled with rage. Seeing Chen Xiaobian's cowardly behavior made him even angrier, so he aggressively advanced towards the shaman. Chen Xiaobian saw things were ready and retreated towards the main door, but who knew the shaman was also pretending. Upon seeing Dagong's aggressive demeanor, he revealed his true colors, cowering timidly just like Chen Xiaobian. Chapter 17, The Harm of Charms and Curses, Part 2. After Chen Lago removed the corpse poison from Wang Jun's son, the boy could finally jump around and play mischievously again. Wang Jun also felt relieved sitting down to chat with Chen Lago. The topic kept coming back to the child. After all, the son was Wang Jun's own flesh and blood, so whenever the capture was mentioned, Wang Jun felt anxious. Ultimately, they didn't know where to trace it from. While speaking, a voice echoed from outside the door. It was clearly Chen Xiaobian's voice. It turned out that Chen Xiaobian and Dagong, who had followed the soul-hooking bird to catch the culprit, had returned. Between them was a man with a swollen face and a bleeding head.
Listening to Chen Xiaobian and Lu Dajiang arguing to speak, it was clear this person was the mastermind who cast the curse to harm Wang Jun's son. Chen Laogo took one look and knew the other person was a typical Han Chinese from the north, actually having no relationship with the Miaojiang shamans. However, Chen Xiaobian claimed to have evidence, which was a straw effigy. Chen Laogo took the straw man and understood immediately. This was the lowest level of cursing technique in Miaojiang sorcery. Just then, Wang Jun's wife walked out of the room. Upon seeing the man being brought in, she screamed in panic, "So it's this old rogue!" Wang Jun's wife was very agitated seeing this person. Scolding and cursing, she rushed towards him. "You old rogue, you harmed me, and now you want to harm my son too." Wang Jun, fearing his wife would be disadvantaged and not understanding the situation, hurriedly held her back. The man, knowing he was in the wrong, quickly hid behind Dagong. Wang Jun's wife was a very hot-tempered person. She shook off Wang Jun's hand, pointed straight at the other person's face, and said his name was Gan a shameless rogue. It turned out the story went back 10 years ago. At that time, Wang Jun and his wife, Song Ling, were not yet married. They had just started dating. One evening, Song Ling was standing in front of an alley waiting for Wang Jun to pick her up, but unexpectedly, a filthy guy spotted her.
That person pushed Songling in front of an old house deep in the alley, hastily and greedily taking advantage of her.
Zhang was initially terrified, but when she saw that guy's face clearly, her anger flared up violently. Actually, if this were a stranger, Zhang might have been somewhat afraid, but this Gan usually didn't do anything decent, and everyone in the village knew his guts were as small as an eggplant. Furious, Zhang immediately landed a kick on his groin. This time it really hurt enough. Gan was in so much pain he felt dizzy. Zhang seized the opportunity to escape, not forgetting to curse, a toad lusting after swan meat. Gan crouched on the ground for half an hour, unable to stand up. Zhang had run far away, but her sharp-tongued nature couldn't be helped. She even turned back to mock him one last time. Even if all the men in the world were dead, I would never set eyes on a scoundrel like you. 10 years had passed since then. No one thought Gan would come for revenge now. Standing nearby, Wang Jun was furious after hearing this and wanted to rush up to beat that guy, but Chen Laogo stopped him. Those listening found it both funny and hateful. Having his shameful past pointed out by Zhang Gan could only bow his head in shame. Seemingly turning anger out of shame, Gan rushed towards Zhang and Wang Jun, but luckily Da Gong reacted quickly and held him back. However, Gan's emotions were still extremely agitated. He bent down towards Zhang and shouted loudly, "Do you know why I can't get a wife? Do you know what kind of damage that kick of yours caused?"
Gan became more and more agitated as he spoke, eventually almost bursting into tears. Listening to him, it seemed he had suffered extremely serious damage. It appeared his little brother was completely paralyzed. The people there, after hearing him scream for half the day, suddenly understood. Perhaps every man could understand this kind of pain. Gan grew increasingly excited, several times wanting to risk his life fighting Zhang, but he didn't know how to get past Da Gong, who was holding him tight. Seeing that this situation would surely turn into a commotion if it continued, Chen Laogo spoke up. "Gan, you used this dark art to harm others and ended up harming yourself. Did you not know that when this curse is broken, it causes a backlash? Moreover, even if it wasn't broken, it would damage your own lifespan. Why didn't you think of the consequences when harming others?" Having said this, old Chen asked Gan why. Being a northerner, he knew the sorcery of the Miaozhong people. Knowing he could no longer hide it, Gan recounted how he learned sorcery while working in the south. In truth, Gan was an idle vagrant who basically didn't want to work. He said his employment was merely driving for a boss. Once, their boss told him to pick up an old man from a mountain stronghold to help solve some difficult problems. Seeing the old man's rustic appearance, Gan made some unpleasant remarks. "This old man is so rustic. Why did the boss seek him out?" It was clearly visible that everyone else was afraid of the old man, but Gan truly couldn't see what was so scary about him. That old man didn't have a good attitude towards Gan either, acting as if he had a grudge against northerners. "Kid, are you from the north? I advise you to watch yourself. I don't have a good impression of northerners, especially that old dog, Chen Laogo." Born curious, Gan crawled outside the window to watch the old man deal with a subordinate who had made a mistake. The old man took something out from his bosom, clenched it in his hand, then had someone hold the traitor down. He then threw the thing, which looked like a pupa, into the traitor's mouth. After a while, the traitor fell to the ground. The sorcerer named Tianba said everything was finished. At first, Gan didn't understand. But then Gan noticed the traitor Enro suddenly raised his head to the sky, his whole body trembling. He was in indescribable pain, as if something was occupying his brain. His mouth opened wide in agony, and fresh blood flowed from his eyes. Except for that old man Tianba, even those unblinking murderers felt this scene make their skin crawl, shuddering without being cold. It was strange. That guy had been beaten for 2 days and 2 nights without opening his mouth, yet now he suddenly became like a puppet, answering whatever was asked. Gan stood outside the window watching the boss pay the old man. He didn't feel that person was overly domineering, but he had never seen anyone so weirdly cruel. An associate coming out snapped Gan out of his daze. Only then did he discover that the traitor was walking out trembling all over, just like a puppet, walking far away without consciousness before collapsing to the ground.
Gan looked at the person lying on the ground. Although he didn't dare to go over and check, he knew clearly that this traitor was likely dead. Though the traitor lay motionless, it seemed as if something was squirming inside his body. Before long, a pile of black armored insects crawled out from his mouth, spreading out in a way that made people want to vomit. There were so many that they covered the entire human body. When Gan got Tianba back to the mountain stronghold, knowing how terrifying the old man was, he sincerely apologized and even expressed his desire to study under Tianba. Initially, Gan just said it casually, but the old man actually agreed, making Gan deliriously happy. Gan originally thought learning this incantation technique would allow him to easily make some money, but having been in the south all these years, he never had a chance to use it. Later, his boss was captured and the minions scattered, each fleeing to a different place.
After hearing his story, Dagong couldn't contain his anger. Not only did he not follow the path of righteousness, but now he was using those petty skills to harm his fellow villagers. Just speaking of it made Dagong want to beat him up. But at this moment, Chen Lago signaled to stop. So it was that old man Tianba. He isn't dead yet? However, he wasn't helping you. He was harming you. Leaving aside the fact that he taught you dark arts that harm both yourself and others, did you think he taught you unconditionally? Chen Lago analyzed that the evil Miaozhong sorcerer Tianba taught Goner dark arts, but there was a more dangerous conspiracy behind it. While everyone was still reacting, suddenly Chen Lago punched Goner hard in the stomach, shocking everyone present.
Taking advantage of the moment Gan Er was opening his mouth wide, Chen Lao Go quickly threw a pill into his throat. It turned out Chen Lao Go fed Gan Er Realgar and instructed Lu Dezhong to hold him down tight. The Tong risked his life, immediately rushing forward to clamp down on Gan Er's neck. This time, Gan Er was startled to the point of panic. This scene reminded him of the terrifying sight the traitor faced years ago. Not long after, Gan Er's pupils turned stark white and his whole body went limp like a noodle. Just as Dezhong let go, he saw Gan Er's stomach bulge with something, his body leaning forward, mouth gradually opening wide. Immediately after, Gan Er's jaw swelled up, as if something wanted to crawl out from his mouth. Sure enough, a disgusting fleshy worm crawled out from Gan Er's mouth, carrying a sticky substance that made people feel nauseous. That meat worm had no eyes, only a large, soft mouth. As soon as it hit the ground, it stopped moving. But just a moment later, probably because it lost the supply from human bloodlines, it looked like a pile of ferns. Gan Er looked at the terrifying thing running out of his body in extreme fear, but Chen Lao Go told him, luckily it was discovered early. This was the Rao Gu worm, not yet fully formed. It turned out Tian Ba hated Gan Er for speaking rudely to him, so he had cast a Gu curse. If they had waited about another year, and this Rao Gu worm had taken form, Gan Er's life would certainly be lost. Hearing Chen Lao Go's explanation, Gan Er recalled the past events and couldn't help breaking out in a cold sweat, not expecting he had almost died at the hands of that sorcerer. The more he thought about it, the more regretful he felt.
Chen Lao Go analyzed that Ganer's condition was also related to the gu insects because the gu insects inside his body were ceaselessly absorbing his essence. This prevented him from recovering, so how could he possibly get it up when meeting girls? I might be able to help you a bit. Hearing that his illness could be cured, Ganer immediately knelt on the ground, kowtowing ceaselessly before Chen Lao Go, begging him for treatment. But Chen Lao Go said something that stunned Ganer. He didn't live as well as the Wang family. He had hustled for years but hadn't made much money, so now that Chen Lao Go was demanding a fee, it would be quite difficult. However, because of this impotence, Gan Er had to accept it. No matter how much money, he wanted to be cured. He wanted to play with girls. Hearing this, the happiest person was Chen Xiaobian. Finally, his father had become enlightened. But only Chen Lao Go knew that for people like this, only by making them pay a real price would they know pain and not dare to do bad things anymore. Chapter 18. The Miaojiang Feud. At dawn, Chen Lao Go led Chen Xiaobian and Dao Gong from Wang Jun's house back to Guanling village. The two young men were very curious about the secrets of the Miaojiang shaman, so they asked Chen Lao Go. It turned out that he had been to Miaojiang before and had encountered that shaman. Chen Lao Go thought that young people nowadays should also learn many things, so he didn't hide anything. He sighed and told them the story. Back then, if I hadn't been soft-hearted and spared his life, he wouldn't be continuing to harm people today. That was a story from more than 40 years ago, when Chen Lao Go was entrusted by a friend to go to Miaojiang to find a treasure called the Fire Dragon Pearl.
Chen Lao Go had spent nearly half a year searching for the fire dragon bead inside the red demon spider, and another month guiding that poison into a patch of land about 3 to 4 square meters. Lao Go used bamboo tubes to seal the area according to the 6 Yao positions, then poured sulfur into those tubes one by one to force the creature underground out. After everything was prepared, Lao Go stepped aside and patiently waited for the venomous creature. Lao Go's calculations were very precise. In less than 15 minutes, the creature below could no longer withstand the smell of sulfur and tried to raise its head. Sure enough, within the patch of land surrounded by the 6 bamboo tubes, a pile of soil suddenly began to move, as if something was preparing to crawl out. Before long, a black shadow appeared. It was a giant black spider, 1 meter long. The black spider was not only massive, but also appeared extremely ferocious. On its back, a terrifying human face pattern naturally appeared. As soon as the spider crawled out, it realized that it was surrounded by spirit-suppressing talismans and could not escape, causing it to spin around frantically in panic. Chen Lao Go grabbed the rope he had prepared beforehand, then spat on his hands, getting ready to catch the spider. Just as Lao Go pulled, the 6 bamboo tubes retracted and clamped down tightly on the poisonous spider. He had prepared thoroughly, thinking the poisonous spider would be paralyzed by the sulfur smell and lose its will to fight. But who would have thought the spider had an aggressive nature? It spewed out the poison from its body, intending to die together. This time, Lao Go was terrified. This was the extremely deadly blood yin poison. If touched, it would be hard to survive, so Lao Go tried his best to dodge its poison. Even so, a corner of his shirt was hit by the poison and was instantly incinerated, emitting toxic fumes, showing just how terrifying this toxin was. Lao Go originally did not want to harm its life, but seeing the current situation, he had no choice but to draw the Guanding So coffin nail rope and launch it straight at the creature.
The Guanding Suo struck the brain right between the spider's 6 eyes, leaving the poisonous spider trembling and struggling on the ground.
Because its weak point was hit, the poisonous spider completely lost its power to counterattack. At this moment, Chen Lao-go took out a bamboo blade and stabbed it straight into the poisonous spider's back. Its eyes were the fire dragon pearls, Huolong-ju. Since these fire dragon pearls would turn into red smoke if they touched metal, only a bamboo blade could be used to extract them. If the fire dragon pearl was taken from the poisonous spider while it was still alive, it would be even more potent. If taken after death, it would lose a large amount of medicinal power, so Chen Lao-go quickly gouged the fire dragon pearls out while it was still dying. Holding the red glimmering pearls in his hand, Chen Lao-go felt very happy. The half-year of effort and the entrustment of his friend were not in vain. He would give his friend one pill, and the remaining one would be his. Suddenly, he heard a chi-chi sound coming from the forest behind him. Chen Lao-go knew that something must have happened, so he immediately turned his head to look, but because it was too dark, he did not spot anything unusual. However, that alarm sound kept ringing out. The figure hiding in the forest knew they could no longer hide, so they stood up and ran away. Chen Lao-go did not know who was stalking him, someone capable of evading his detection. It was certainly an expert, but since he had the treasure on him right now, it was not convenient to give chase, so Chen Lao-go immediately left.
At that time, his friend arranged for him to live in a house at the foot of a mountain, far from the village. When he returned, it was already midnight. Having obtained the treasure, Chen Lao-go was very happy and prepared to store it away to give to his friend the next morning. Suddenly, he felt his body becoming unusually ice-cold, his heart aching in spasms, and one arm became numb. Having lived in Miaojiang for half a year, he had some understanding of sorcery and thought he might have been harmed by someone. He immediately looked in the mirror and indeed saw a black patch on his forehead and blood streaks in his eyes. These were the initial symptoms of a Jiangtou hex. Chen Lao-go's Miaojiang friend had once taught him how to break this Jiangtou hex. Combined with his own knowledge of exorcism techniques, he immediately took off his shirt and took out acupuncture needles. He inserted the needles into the heart meridian points on his left arm, then continued along that meridian. After inserting 7 large needles into his left arm, Chen Lao-go began to feel the poison of the hex moving and gathering in that arm. After a while, his entire left arm turned black. Chen Lao-go took a knife and made a cut at the wrist, causing a large amount of black blood to gush out. A lot of black blood flowed out, but only when he saw the blood turn red did Chen Lao-go dare to rest easy, considering the poison in his body resolved. Although the poison was cured, this young man was not one to easily let off the person who harmed him. As soon as Chen Lao-go finished speaking, the big-headed rat in the corner of the house seemed to receive an order and immediately left. After a while, about a few hundred rats gathered in front of Chen Lao-go's door, and then they scattered to search everywhere.
Ask yourself, is there any place that rats cannot find? In less than 15 minutes, they had found the person hiding in a gloomy house performing dark arts. This person was slightly thin, with dark skin, a Mao Jam shaman. He was using a red string tied across an effigy, his mouth muttering something as if performing the Jiangtou sorcery. However, paying no attention, the door behind him suddenly opened, and Chen Lao-go walked in with a fierce look on his face. "Who are you? Why do you want to harm me?" The man did not understand how Chen Lao-go had found this place. He panicked upon seeing him, but immediately calmed down, grabbing a knife on the table and attempting to throw it at Chen Lao-go. But could that small knife hurt Chen Lao-go? Chen Lao-go tilted his head to dodge the knife, then took 2 more steps forward, continuing to ask, "My patience has limits. Speak now. Who are you, and why are you harming me?" Seeing that Chen Lao-go had dodged the knife, the shaman knew he was no match for this man, so he retreated to the corner of the wall next to a black urn. He backed behind the black urn with a purpose. He pushed the urn over, releasing many strangely shaped insects. These poisonous insects, which kept growing to over 10 centimeters in size, rushed toward Chen Lao-go like a tide. They not only had bizarre shapes, but also hard red shells with many tentacles at their mouths. Facing this swarm of poisonous insects, Chen Lao-go was not afraid at all and said 3 words, "You seek death." As soon as Chen Lao-go finished speaking, hundreds of large rats rushed in from the main door, aiming straight for the insects to bite.
In an instant, hundreds of rats flooded the house, ceaselessly tearing apart the insects. The sound of flesh being ripped, combined with the gnawing of rats, filled the room with a gruesome noise. Seeing the beloved insects he had witnessed for so long being devoured by Chen Lao-go's rats in a flash, he could only stand there, frozen, staring blankly. Chen Lao-go walked up to him and declared, "The rats of your Miaojiang do not know how to cultivate, so my Kui has come here and become their king." Why did Chen Lao-go bring Kui here? Before the man could understand anything, a dark shadow appeared behind him. Without waiting for him to turn around, a large red snake emerged. The snake approached, opening its mouth wide. Combined with the foul stench emitting from it, the man was so terrified that his legs went limp. Just before the snake was about to strike, a woman dressed in Miaojiang attire suddenly appeared. "Please show mercy, Mr. Chen. We will deal with this trash." In fact, Chen Lao-go had guessed earlier that he wasn't being followed without reason. There was definitely a plot behind it. Chen Lao-go asked, "Who are you?" However, the old woman did not answer his question, but said something he couldn't quite grasp. "So young, yet with such extraordinary skills. If I were younger, I would have my eyes on you too." The old woman then scolded the man. "You beast, you have no ability but great jealousy. Are you convinced of your defeat now?" The man sat there, still refusing to yield. Their conversation confused Chen Laogo even more. This guy harmed him out of jealousy, but what did he have to be jealous of? The man then said, "Why must we intermarry with Han people? Now that I've lost, what should I do? The one Maisie marries should be me."
Chen Laogo still didn't understand what this intermarriage they were talking about was. The woman spoke again. "Then let this red snake bite you to death. I don't need a trash son-in-law like you." Chen Laogo stood still, listening to their conversation, still unable to visualize what they were saying. Chen Laogo didn't want to get involved too much. According to his many years of experience walking the Zhenghu, one shouldn't participate in matters one doesn't clearly understand, especially the emotional affairs of this mysterious Miaozhang clan. "I don't know what you two are saying, but it doesn't concern me either. I'm done with my business here." Having said that, Chen Laogo turned his back to leave. At this moment, the old woman slowly spoke a few sentences, forcing Chen Laogo to stop and listen. "Wait a moment, young Master Chen. I am Yan Fu of the Long Clan in Miaozhang. Your 2 fire dragon beads are what we want. Besides, do you want to meet that person?" Following the old woman's words, a Miaozhang girl walked in. When Chen Laogo turned to look at that girl, he froze. Many questions arose in his heart. Why was it her? Why was she a Miao person? She was supposed to be waiting for him outside the mountains, wasn't she? She was a beauty as stunning as a fairy, now wearing Miaozhang-style makeup. Amai spoke up. "I'm sorry, Brother Ogo. Actually, I am a person of Miaozhang, and my surname is Long." Chen Laogo stopped abruptly here in his storytelling. "In short, back then I was soft-hearted and spared that shaman named Long Tianba, and as a result, he harmed so many people." After that, Chen Laogo walked back to the village. The story was at its climax, leaving Chen Xiaobian and Da Gong entranced. After a long while, both of them finally reacted. "Wait, Dad, who exactly was that girl Amai? This really is a shocking secret that we're only finding out now." Both of them kept nagging from behind, asking Chen Laogo to continue telling the story about that mysterious Miao woman named Amai. Although they were extremely curious, Chen Laogo's personality was just like that. Even if forced, he wouldn't tell.